Ah! There we go. We're only 15 minutes late. Don't blame Jay Foreman. He's not driving. Are you, Jay Foreman? Great.
Good, thanks. Good introduction.
I mean, it fits because last time on the Brexit podcast, and according to Mr. Adam Gaffney here, was almost a year ago to the day. We had Miss Susie Kennedy who was on a train. So,
for Americans, that's the noise Brexit makes. We've developed a machine to Brexit for us because our politics are used, so that's it. It's just starting up in the background there.
Is Jay alright? Like, is he okay? Should we be concerned?
I really hope he hasn't crashed.
Should we be concerned?
Yeah, you know, he's probably fine, you know.
Yeah, beep your horn if you're alright.
If you wonder what the noise is, there he is.
Basically, all I can hear from you guys is these sort of bling, 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 bling sort of noises, like a heart thrown down the stairs in the 80s. So, what I'm doing, I'm going to keep driving until I find a place with some good 4G, and then I'm going to stay there. So I'm cancelling my plans to multitask driving back from the gig and doing a podcast at the same time.
Oh, Jay,
I'm now going to pull over in a lay-by and do the podcast. So that's a task and a half.
A lay-by in the south, in Brexit territory, no less.
Oh, hey, it sounds fine now. I've changed my mind. I'm going to keep going. That's coming through.
Great. Now, I'll introduce everyone one by one. And if you watch the Brexit podcast, we have a lot of returning guests here. So, first of all, we have Mr. Adam Gaffney, 96. Adam, would you like to say where you're from and why you're here?
I'm from Scotland, and I was really angry at the general election initially because fuck Scotland. That's pretty much it. Fuck Scotland.
Fuck Scotland. That's a great one, Mr. Kevin Gissey.
Yeah, well, my name is Kevin Giese, and I'm here just to be your token reminder that it could be so much worse.
And we have a good actual balance here of sound quality because Kevin here is in like an isolated sound booth, an actual proper sound booth. You know, got a good microphone, Jay, iPhone headphones, and mic in a fucking car. So, you know, we have all the levels of audio. Claire, Miss Claire Wilson.
Hi. I'm your token EU citizen / dirty migrant taking all your jobs and clogging the roads. Yes, indeed. I'm from France. I've lived in the UK for 9 years now, and it's nice being a little bit of a scarecrow and also bargaining chip for this guy. So.
You know, you got to be used. It's good to be used as currency. It's like you know what? The French never experienced slavery. You know,
I'm not making that comparison. You're making that comparison on your own, mate.
We have Mr. Jay Foreman.
Hello.
There he is.
So my name's Jay Foreman, and I am the token. I feel like I have to say the word "I am the token" before saying something, but I'm no different from anyone else, really. There's nothing special about me. I'm the guy that does politics unboring videos on YouTube. And I'm here because I'm angry, boys and girls.
Weren't you on ITV on the election night?
I was. They invited me on and they said, we don't know yet what we're going to use you for, but, you know, stick around until 6 in the morning and we're bound to interview you about something. And I ended up having a fight with Anne Widdecombe, so that was fun.
Good job, Jay. We have Mr. Sorry, I don't remember your name.
Yeah, unfortunately we don't know who you're trying to introduce, Matt, so...
no, it's you, of course
I think it's you because you're the only dude.
Ah, okay, right. I'm the token southern
Jake,
British
that's your name.
So the southern Ponzi British one, who people can like. I guess like from my voice, you'd guess I was the one invited on as like the token Brexiteer and the Tory and whatnot. But I promise I'm not. I'm actually, as many people don't know, actually a second generation immigrant. My mother is not British. But that's you know. Basically, I'm not sure what. I'm just here because I occasionally show and Matt does things. Really,
pretty much.
That's why.
He knows classics as well, so he can probably give you some comparisons to Rome or something.
Mm-hmm.
Basically. And last but not least, we have the resident DUP supporter, Miss Vicky.
I'm Vicky, Ninja Pots on Twitter. I make games, and I'm here to apologise on behalf of all of Northern Ireland for allowing the DUP anywhere near Westminster.
Oh, Jerry Adams is just so furious. Jerry Adams is. Now, this has been put off for a while. I've been planning to do this for a while. It's delayed, isn't it? And, you know, we've done this. Was the... You know what? I haven't actually been keeping up, probably. Was the Queen's speech was done, wasn't it? Yes, it was. Okay.
A very small one, yes. It was a deliberately delayed one, and also we're not going to have one next year. We're just gonna skip a bit and just basically this one's gonna run for 2 years.
Did you know they write it on like goat skin parchment? Isn't that the most like twatty thing you've ever heard in your life?
Are you surprised though? Like, are you surprised that Britain would do something like that?
No.
The thing about British politics, it is so full of batshittery, such as they have to write the Queen's speech on vellum, and you know you're not allowed to actually turn up in debates unless you've turned up early in the morning for morning prayers. You know, it's so full of things that make absolutely no sense, to such an extent that you kind of can't change anything, because, well, if you change the rule about writing on goatskin, well then you'll have to ask questions like, do we need the House of Lords, or is the entire thing completely batshit? And the answer is no and yes.
It's... I like to think, like, it was written on like a tiny little, almost toilet paper sized bit of goatskin. You know, the kind the Queen wipes her arse with.
It's a real holdout over that when they're kind of routine, because I've been in an environment where they really like clean to their ridiculous routines and old-fashioned traditions that make sense. Which I went to Oxford University, where there's a lot of stupid traditions that still go on. They're just dumb because they've always been done. But even there, like, actually mainly it's only done 5% of the time for the benefit of the tourists during big events, and most of the time everyone just says, actually, we don't bother with that Ponzi stuff. Like 90% of the time, it's just like, you know what, let's just do things that make sense. But politics is a real proper holdout. They really 100% commit to being totally anachronistic in every way.
Because they're proud of it, they actually really like it. And then, you know the tradition of the Queen's speech where Black Rod, the man with the black cape and the black rod, comes in, he then knocks on the door, and the door is ceremonially slammed in his face to remind him, the monarch does not have absolute power in this place. But it's all just tradition and batshittery, and they revel in that sort of thing.
Wait, so they want to tell you that the Queen isn't absolutely in charge, and therefore they slam the door in someone's face that is not the Queen?
Yeah, even
that makes a lot of sense.
So,
they can slam that Queen's face. Whoa.
This is the bizarre thing, is that the origin of this weird tradition is that it would be the monarch or the representative of the monarch that would knock on the door, and they would quite literally slam the door in their face as if to say, no, we're not interested. You know, you have to really coax us into letting you in. But
no
what happened, like, that has now turned into, like, it probably only took just a couple of generations for that to now be something you don't question. And it's all planned meticulously, and he politely knocks on the door, and they all know it's going to happen. And that basically means that the whole thing that started for, the idea that Parliament is not controlled by external forces, that's now disappeared. It's all for nothing now. It's the sort of thing that you, it's kind of like meat. You never start it from scratch. It's only here because it's still here.
That's a really weird metaphor, Jay.
Yeah, like imagine if there was no such thing as meat, and then someone came along and just came up with the idea in 2017, like, hey, you know all those animals? Maybe should we try eating them? It would never start from scratch. The only reason that we still have meat is because it's been around for hundreds of years.
I think bacon would be a pretty easy sell. I think if I'm literally the only bacon in the world, and I could just go around offering people samples of bacon on a tray, I could get bacon going pretty fast.
Can you imagine trying to sell the idea of cars now? It's like drive these big metal things around with a combustible material and see how it goes.
I'd be willing to give it a go, because I'd just basically arrange races against Olympic athletes and say, I'm going to take the fastest man in the world and we're going to race him from here to Liverpool, and I bet I'm going to get there significantly before him. Cars! Get yours today! I'm willing to give that a go, yeah. Go for it. I spent 7 years working in marketing. I'll sell pigs. I'll sell killing pigs. I'll sell cars. Go for it.
As someone who pretends to be a scientist and an engineer, I would say that most of it basically stems from, well, I mean, we probably can do it, so let's just do it anyway and see how it goes. And I think that's pretty much what happened with everything, was we just went, we might be able to do it. If something might blow up, it'll be fine.
I've often wondered who was the first person to invent cheese. Because that took some bravery.
It was us. It was the French.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. It was not the French.
Probably not, but that was funny.
Fucking French taking credit for everyone else's things.
Cheese literally predates history. The earliest historical records we have in writing, there's literally cheese in it. They already had it then.
Is it written on cheese?
It was not written on cheese. It might have, if there were copies on cheese, they've sadly long since either degraded or been eaten.
What was it then? Sumerian?
Yeah, that would, unlike the original, unlike a lot of the original earliest writings, which was just basically the earliest writings, just records of possessions. Cheese and cheese-producing animals are totally there.
Well, I'm just curious as to what kind of cheese it was.
But cheese would have happened easily enough by accident. Like, a lot of things in, like, cookery history have been developed by accident. Like, biscuits are just bread that someone, like, left too long in the oven and then it cooked too long or something like that. That's how things like that happen. And butter is literally just milk that has been agitated long enough for the cream and the milk to separate. And the same kind of thing happens with cheese.
We can't have cheese anymore because of Brexit.
This raises the question, all of the other accidental things that happen in cooking, which ones are going to be turned into future delicacies?
Burnt pizza.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one. As long as there's no pineapple on it.
Oh, of course you bring that into it. You know what, now it's a politics podcast. You brought the pineapple pizza debate into it.
Are you referring to the president of Iceland, who he announced that he was going to make pineapple on pizza illegal? When he was on a panel show of some sort, he was trying to be funny, but it got taken really seriously. And people in Iceland have been arguing about it for months, like whether the pineapple on pizza law should actually take place.
How much does it cost to get pineapple up to Iceland?
Like,
that seems like a very expensive taste to have up there.
Surely it's about the same as it costs to get pineapples anywhere outside where pineapples grow. Like England.
Yeah, but England's a Ponzi-rich place.
Yeah, pretty soon we won't have pineapples, we won't have anything. We'll just have what we could grow locally.
We'll be able to finally have bent pineapples like we like them. Pounds and ounces.
We'll just start, we'll go begging over to Ireland saying, can we please have some potatoes? Please. For the love of God. I know this is historically somewhat ironic and you probably will find this very amusing, but we're all starving to death and we desperately need potatoes.
Oh, that's, you know.
To which Ireland will just respond with, ha ha ha, nice, good, bye.
Yeah, it's not like the British. Oh fuck, shit. That I would like to. That is a good segue to Northern Ireland and the DUP. I realise a lot of people don't really know that much about Northern Ireland and Northern Irish politics.
Aha, yes.
So, I want to talk about how that actually works for people who don't understand, and obviously.
I'll give it a brief. I'll try to give a brief overview. Right. So, Northern Ireland is part of the UK. Legally, technically, all that kind of stuff, whether we like it or not. And then you've got the island of Ireland, which consists of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which is down south where Dublin and all is, and Northern Ireland is where Belfast is. So, Northern Ireland decided to overwhelmingly vote for the DUP this time. Thanks, absolute dickheads. And the DUP, they're the Democratic Unionist Party, but they're more unionist than democratic. They're like a Bible Belt kind of thing. It's like, imagine the Westboro Baptist Church headed the Republican Party in the States. That's what it kind of feels like.
It kind of does.
Even with this in mind, like, a lot of people ignore this kind of crazy DUP stuff and brush it to the side, and they vote for the DUP just because they see themselves British first and everything else second, and the DUP like gives them the greatest chance of Northern Ireland remaining in the UK. So yeah, we're pretty fucked, because that's all really people like seem to care about here at the minute, rather than, like, you know, gay marriage and like equal rights and that kind of thing.
Wow, they don't matter.
Well, this says that there used to be a unionist party that was basically fine, but then this particular one, the Democratic Unionist Party, sort of came along and hijacked it, and it was a bit more militant and religious.
Yeah, this is like our second election this year. So in the first one, there was the UUP, which is the Ulster Unionist Party, and they were a bit more liberal. They were like, oh, let's sort of team up with the more sort of less hardcore like Republican Party, the SDLP, and then everyone rejected that, like, no way, we're not sharing votes with the other side. So then the UUP kind of imploded, and now we got stuck with the DUP.
It might also actually help for some of our people who are not from the UK to understand that Ireland is currently Northern Ireland is currently kind of lacking a government and has done for some time, and exactly why that is and why that affects Brexit.
I think it's important to have a quick overview of how the UK works politically, if you don't quite understand. Essentially, if you don't know, the United Kingdom is made up of 4 countries, technically: England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland have devolved parliaments, so they have smaller parliaments that manage their own areas, essentially. That's why you will see, you know, in Scotland the SNP do so well, because when a lot of people are voting, they are voting from, much like you should really, your local constituent. That's what you're supposed to vote for at the end of the day. Same with Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, if you don't know, bit of tension there.
Just a wee bit.
Just a wee bit of tension. Essentially, there are unionists who, you know what, I actually get confused. Unionists, they want unify out, or they want unification with the United Kingdom. I actually often get it confused.
Yeah, it's unionists want to remain part of the union.
Okay.
And then you've got nationalists, and they want to... They're I'm trying to think of an easy way. They want to be part of Ireland.
Okay.
They want they want the Republic of Ireland to be the entire island of Ireland.
Yes, it's occupied 6 counties, damn it.
Yeah. So just to be clear, they want Ireland to be the island of Ireland, okay?
Yes,
Everyone
yes.
clear.
Also, Jason disconnected, by the way.
So just to clarify, just because I'm curious, so any sort of reunification efforts would always be.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, so if that's what's being suggested, it's always under the auspices of being of being the Republic of Ireland, not that the Republic of Ireland would ever be part of the UK.
Oh God, no.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. It's also worth probably flagging for people who are less familiar with the scenario that this was really, really nasty not very long ago.
Yeah,
terrorism on both sides, huge scale murder on both sides, to the extent of some certain sides in the conflict like bombed a hotel where our Prime Minister at the time was staying in England. There was a lot of murder on both sides.
This is actually quite a relevant thing, because a lot of people obviously talk about ISIS recently, and there's a lot of racism there. And I think a lot of people do forget that not 20, 30 years ago, there was an incredible amount of terrorism from people in Northern Ireland and Ireland.
There's a funny thing how quickly it's been forgotten just how much this country used to associate Northern Ireland with terrorism. When you go to Belfast now, young generations don't remember the Troubles at all, and you've got these signs up from the tourist board that say things like, "Come to Belfast, you'll be surprised, it's actually fine." And then the young people see it and go, "Wait, what? I was on my way, but now I'm asking questions."
It's like, I promise we're not shit. We've got so much to offer. And you always see things like, despite the troubled history of Northern, I'm like, don't mention that. No one wants to just try and...
Don't mention the war!
Oh, God.
But yes, in terms of reunification efforts, it would always be the North joining the South as opposed to the South joining the North and the rest of the UK.
Got it.
Are there any batshit unionists who actually want Dublin to become part of the UK again?
I mean,
sure
there are
are.
batshit people who want to reinstate the British Empire, so probably yes.
Did you see this pro-Brexit poster from quite recently that showed this little cartoon of a map of Britain with these horrible empire images, and they're saying, "This is what we could be like, let's be patriotic and believe in Brexit." And something they completely forgot to check was that the map of Britain included the Republic of Ireland daubed in red, white and blue Union Jack colours.
Fucking great. Jeez.
Brexit not doing their research? What are you implying?
See, it's important to talk about here as well that the two main political parties in Northern Ireland currently are Sinn Féin and the DUP, and I'm sure you know of the DUP, and I imagine a lot of you have probably heard of Sinn Féin. Essentially, these two parties are equally unionist and nationalist. Sinn Féin wants unification with Ireland.
You're doing well here.
and the DUP wants to remain part of the United Kingdom, and they're sort of more Christian and a bit more sort of right wing. And I think Gerry Adams, leader of Sinn Féin, he was a member of the IRA. That's the thing. But that is so inherently built into the politics of Northern Ireland. And you look at the Northern Irish Parliament, Stormont, and they haven't had a session for a while.
Yeah, like literally. So the reason this is our second election this year is because big banter. Arlene Foster just had to go and fuck everything up. It's like, Martin McGuinness didn't die for this. She basically spent £500 million on this like renewable heating scheme. So it was like, she was saying to her mates like, oh yeah, come on, I've got this like good wee scheme. If you apply for this, you'll burn some wood pellets in your big unheated barn that you don't use anyway, heat it up now with this renewable energy, and I'll be able to give you like £1.60 back for every pound you spend, essentially. And that, like, literally just a black hole of £500 million. And then Sinn Féin and all the other parties wanted her to step aside as leader of the DUP until they sorted this out, and she was like, no, I'm not stepping aside. So then the government just imploded, and it literally since January it's been like that since.
Yeah, Northern Ireland, and yeah, as someone says there, the DUP have a lot of people who were in the UDF, the Ulster Defence Force, which was again the opposite, basically just the people against the IRA, the other terrorist group.
But let's also be very, very clear. Both sides had what would today be very clearly labelled as terrorists on them.
Yeah, very.
There was no goodies versus baddies here in any sense. Well, both sides were utter twats.
I would like to I read this up the other week actually, and I actually never realised quite how bad the job was. I know I'm from Ireland. My grandmother on my Irish side was in a car near a car bombing, and you know, looking at this, you know, you a lot of people talk about, you know, ISIS. Oh, you see a lot of these little twats on Twitter, like, oh, deport all the Muslims, blah blah blah, Islam, religion, hate, whatever. But you look at what was all the terrorist attacks in the Troubles.
Yeah,
and it's surprising if you haven't read up on it before. It's you know,
it's crazy. They used to not be able to go, like my parents and my boyfriend's parents, they couldn't go out into like town for a night out. It had to be somewhere in the outskirts of town. You didn't walk down the wrong side of the street. You Adam's mum was almost hit by like a bullet just by pure chance. She happened to miss it. It bounced off a skip. Even in the 90s, I remember like looking out the window and seeing like actual like armed army guys out my front door with a gun. I was like, oh holy shit, something's going down. But it's all right now, mostly since the Good Friday Agreement. But like, it was gnarly, and people seem to forget that.
But do you still have the segregated streets where you have two bus stops next to each other, one for Protestants, one for Catholics?
No, but there's still peace walls. So like, I started a course last week at a college in West Belfast, because I'm from East Belfast and grew up there. I had never really been to West Belfast before, and
wow.
There was just no, yeah, it's crazy. There was just no, like, I didn't want to get the bus home on my own just in case, so I ended up getting like a lift from the guy that ran the course, and there was just a peace wall in the area. It just goes to show that even though like I've grown up, I've gone to uni,
peace wall.
so it's like,
yeah, that's quite Orwellian, calling it a peace wall.
Yeah, it's like a wall between a Protestant and a Catholic community, so that they can't really chuck stuff over at each other.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, this is it. You know, when people call Islam a religion of hate, just remember this shit happens in all religions. And you know, people infight within Christianity, for Christ's sake. And you know, I think what a lot of the trouble in Northern Ireland are more ideological differences as opposed to just specifically religion.
Yeah, I don't think when the Catholics and Protestants are attacking each other in Northern Ireland, I don't think they're referring to their differences in the Bible. I think it's just because they're like born like immediately into them and us ideology, where like there's very few schools in Northern Ireland. Now, correct me if I'm wrong about this, because I don't live there, but as far as I understand it, almost every school in Northern Ireland is either Catholic or Protestant. Yeah. And it just sort of instills in you from a very young age, there are two tribes, you're supposed, you know, it's positively encouraged to distrust the other one.
But onto most schools, I mean, I don't want to disagree about Northern Ireland because I don't know anything about it, but aren't most schools in the UK somehow religious? Because that's something that, as a French person, that really surprised me when I came to the UK, that most of them are kind of somewhat religiously funded and have somewhat of a religious bent to the education.
It isn't most, it's less than half, but you know, it's still way too many. So the school I went to...
Sorry, go ahead.
The school I went to, it wasn't a religious school at all, and we had people from all sorts of different backgrounds, because where I was in northwest London, very few white kids. It was really, really diverse. And yet, in assembly in the morning, we'd all be singing about Jesus. And there must have been maybe like 2 kids in the entire school that actually, you know, believed in Jesus at home, but we were all singing. Even though it wasn't a religious school, that was normal back then. I don't know if schools still do that now.
Well, I mean, I know obviously here, we have, I mean, this could just be because I think a lot of the area I grew up in was a Protestant side, because obviously in Scotland it's kind of got the same problems that Northern Ireland has.
Scotland does have pockets of that kind of sort of loyalist versus nothing.
Yeah, but it's a lot less now than it used to be.
Green. There's a city where they can't have anything green, like the Asda, I think, had to change their colours, or like they couldn't have traffic lights.
It's mostly a football thing, honestly. Like it's a Rangers
and Celtic. Yeah, I've been going up more, and learning more about that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
but, I mean, we do actually have Catholic schools where you have to be Catholic or take some sort of Catholic test to get into the school. That is still a thing that happens here quite a lot.
What sort of Catholic test? Like, do you have to cross over a threshold or be splashed by holy water and they say what happened?
I mean, personally, I wouldn't know, but I know that a lot of cases it is actually like testing your knowledge on the Catholic faith. Like, you have to do an entrance exam just to get into the school, otherwise they'll tell you to go to one of the other schools that are non-religious.
A friend of mine who wanted to get his kid into the nearest good school, it was a C of E, Church of England school, and they required that he attend church a certain number of times, and then only once he passes the threshold of attendance will they consider letting his kid into the school. And he's not religious at all, but it was the only good school in the area. So this is the system that is driving the country to be divisive and unnecessarily religious.
That is bullshit.
And that is so ingrained into the politics of Northern Ireland still.
Yeah, and we do have there's the odd integrated school, but there's certain parties pushing for like all integrated schools, which I think would be great. Because even though like I grew up in East Belfast and didn't really realise I was on a side and that there was another side until I got older, I just remember being in primary school being like, why does everyone support England? Like, why do we not support Ireland? It was a thing that no one ever talked about. And then I got to uni and I was like, oh holy fuck, there's a whole other side that I've just been shielded from.
Yeah.
Not even intentionally, it's just by pure nature of where I grew up and where I went to school. And now that I've grown up and seen sort of around me, I'm almost like feel like I've sort of like a wee traitor, like switched to the other side almost, because I'm like, hell yeah, United Ireland sounds good. Even though I grew up in like a unionist area, just because it's such like a toxic environment almost, like the unionist side of things.
I've seen the parades, and it's the only place around the world that I can think of where they celebrate their lack of independence.
Yeah, there's
the orange
parades.
marches.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, the orange marches are ridiculous here. Like you have to get like half the police force out just to sort of walk along with them. Otherwise, it's just a mess. They go and march through the actual Catholic areas as well, which just makes it all even worse.
For context, the Orange Order, or I'm going to put this in big inverted commas,
Loyal
a secret.
Lodge.
The Orange Lodge are a secret organisation, which essentially just supports a unified Northern Ireland with the United Kingdom. They do a lot of marches. They like the colour orange, about William of Orange. There's a Battle of the Boyne on July 12th with William of Orange from you know what?
1690.
1690. Fucking what was it? King Billy. Here we go.
It's stupid, like.
And some of you may be immediately slightly confused as to the slight contradiction between a secret organisation that regularly engages in large-scale marches while dressed in bright orange. Don't worry, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
just run with it.
So
there's definitely a chapter about the loyal orange unionist weirdness in my books about British history at university, so it's not all that a secret, really.
Yeah.
2 marches past my house today. I like literally, it's like it's not even marching day. The big day is meant to be the 12th of July, but it's near the end of June, and they march past.
Have you heard any of the lyrics to the songs?
I know.
Right.
I know they're
Give us
really
a rendition,
Matt.
Well, some of them are Rangers songs as well now.
Sectarian and divisive, mostly.
They are very.
Some of them.
They are very. Let's have a look.
They're not allowed to sing some of them past certain areas.
Yeah,
and then
some
they
of
do
them are
anyway, and then they get fined.
Like go home, some of them are really racist against Irish.
You could say go home, British soldiers. That's like the opposite.
Yeah, it's just a bit. It's a lot of sort of very. You know what? Like the best one I can use to describe it is it's racist.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. Like that's always going to be an issue, I think, when it comes to, especially in like Northern Ireland, especially, but Scotland is kind of like basically an offshoot of Ireland, and we do still get those issues where but a lot over here it's based on the Rangers and Celtic thing. They put it all into football, and they say it's teams, but it's not really to do with the teams at all. It's just because Celtic has an Irish heritage, therefore the Rangers fans hate Celtic because they're Irish and not Scottish and British. And that's genuinely a thing that people fight and kill each other over. It's mental.
Fuck the Pope and the IRA. There's a lot of like, it's a lot of I noticed that a lot of the songs are just like covers of normal, like just normal songs that they just put like fucking horrible lyrics over. But
a lot of them are the same song with 4 different versions of lyrics.
I wish I could tell you more about them, but I actually don't. I only vaguely knew the sash just from the area I grew up in, people playing it, and then apart from that, it's just all sounds kind of the same. It's like, oh no, flute music, run away.
Yeah, it's kind of that. Like I've sort of tried to learn a lot about it recently. I'm trying to get up on Northern Ireland, and it's just
good luck.
Yeah, and it's a mess. Like. Again, the idea of Islamic terror, like it's almost hypocritical in a sense, in that being like, oh, is Islamic terrorists coming from, you know, it was like, there's way more terrorists in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, it's literally like, oh, those are the brown terrorists, they must be the bad guys, and it's like, oh, you're just, it's just ridiculous.
Well, I'm gonna briefly mention a few of the many bombings during the Troubles. The Troubles took place between 1971 and, well, at least these bombings, 1971 and 2001. So about 30 years. One of the most famous ones, the Manchester bombing. There's been 2 now. Apparently terrorists really fucking love Manchester for some reason. Yeah, a large bomb destroyed a large part of the city centre, injured over 200 people. Largest bomb.
That was in 1996, wasn't it?
Yes, that was in 96. 15th of June. Wait, what the? Oh, 15th of June, 96. Almost the end.
And that part of Manchester looks really nice now.
Yeah, it does. It's almost
like
like
big TV screen.
You know what, Ryan? You know what? Liverpool was horribly bombed by the Germans, but thank God it was, because it looks lovely now. Because the Germans bombed everything.
It's thanks to an IRA bomb that we've got the Gherkin in London.
Oh, there we go. See, you know, the IRA bomb. Oh God, no, I can't say that.
Meanwhile, Coventry was bombed the hell out of, and it's still awful. So Coventry got the short end of the stick.
Coventry's a shithole. Like. I went there several times as a child.
They ran out of the reconstruction money before they got to Coventry.
Well, interestingly, Liverpool, most of Liverpool's money for development came from the EU. So, thank God they did that before they fucking left the EU, because it's actually pretty nice now. A few others. Let's see. Barracks bombing. 11 Royal Marines were killed by the IRA in Kent in 1989. 6 off-duty British soldiers were killed by another IRA bomb in 1988. 8 British soldiers were killed and 28 wounded by another bomb in Northern Ireland in the 80s. There's a lot of like there's a huge amount. If you just Google bombing, you know, terrorist attacks during the Troubles.
The one I remember the most clearly was the Omagh bombing, because my mum is from Omagh. So obviously she grew up in a Catholic background. My dad grew up in a Protestant background, which is why I didn't really know there was a difference, because they kind of were like, shh, it's okay, just you can be mixed and we'll not talk about it. But I remember sitting.
You're just going to be Catistant, okay?
I just remember sitting at home, my mum getting a phone call, turn on the TV, and it's like where she grew up was just like in tatters, and that really stuck with me. It was really mad.
Yeah, the Republican, the real IRA and a bomb killed 29 civilians. 29 civilians in 1998. So it's reasonably recent, you know. It was 3 bombings there. Another bomb killed 8 construction workers, 1 a soldier.
I'm pretty sure there was a good documentary about the Omagh bombing, because I'm pretty sure that's how I knew about it, was because we actually watched it in school. We watched a documentary about it and why it happened and all that sort of thing, which was a strange thing to show when we were like 13, but you know.
Here's what's happening.
But like that attitude in Northern Ireland hasn't. It's faded a lot, but it hasn't really gone away. that loyalist versus unionist attitude still there. If you look at a map of the votes in Northern Ireland, actually, interestingly, basically the entire south in Northern Ireland votes Sinn Féin.
So all the border counties are like, yep, Sinn Féin, we'll do that, and then everywhere else, apart from West Belfast, is just like completely red, just EV.
Well, it's interesting reading about it because a lot of like the way the border's done, it goes through people's farms. I think there's a house which one side of the house is in the Republic and one side of the house is in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And this is why the idea of a hard border with Brexit's so fucking ridiculous. A lot of people commute from just Northern Ireland to Ireland just to work.
Yeah, the thought of a hard border, because we already had like all the border checks and growing up with like constant police checks, car checks, checking the boots and stuff, like that's over. We've moved on from that. To implement that again would just be such a step backwards. Oh man,
I mean, I don't think this is really, like, this whole effort isn't really an attempt to avoid a step backwards, is it? Like, this is not a uniquely, the only step backwards involved in this process.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh no, yeah, everywhere's fucked. Everything's fucked now.
It's kind of this awkward thing in that, practically speaking, like, actually just pragmatically speaking, it makes way more sense for Northern Ireland to just become part of Ireland. It just seems easier. Just map-wise.
Just because of the geography. I mean, if you take away all of the really hard-grained attitudes people have that are to do with religion and the community that you're supposedly born into, then if you're just practical about it, then surely people would say, yes, the country with which we should have the political union is the one where you could walk to it rather than the one that almost everyone has to fly to. See, I yearn for a day in the future, hopefully very soon, where the nation you live in is about as significant as the council that you pay your council tax to.
Yeah.
Like, it's just an area of administration.
Just
You've got to live in the country, but like the idea that the nation state is something that you all group together and hate the ones that surround you, like, we don't need it anymore. And that's one of the things that makes leaving the EU so upsetting. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole, there's this surge in right-wing nationalism. From the United States and the UK, especially.
I was at a convention this weekend and I saw people with "Make America Great Again" hats, and I'm like, you're not, like, if we're in Belfast, why is the fuck up? Like, you know what?
Hey, you know what? We need all the help we can get, honestly. If you guys want to help us make it great,
I'll move over there. No, I'm gonna move to Canada. It seems like fixed America, you know.
But like the whole, especially regarding Brexit, Northern Ireland's quite interesting because of that border, and they say, we're not going to have a hard border. You're not going to have a hard border, but practically speaking, let's say they have no deal. They have to have a hard border if there's no deal. Theresa May's got no deal is better than you have no deal. They're gonna have to put up a border.
Yeah, and it's all very well them saying, well, we don't want a hard border. No one wants a hard border, but if they end up building one, they're going to shrug and look to the camera and say, sorry, it's the other side's fault. We didn't want it, but look what they've made us do. And I'm so worried that is going to happen with not just the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. Fucking everything in Brexit is going to be, yeah, this didn't work out and it's the other side's fault. Because if we've come this far, if we've managed to go as so disorganised and chaotic as this, who knows how much further we can go?
No, but this is exactly what they're doing right now because, Cameron said he would call Brexit for some kind of, like, little political gain thing, certain that that the referendum would go with Remain, and then it happened, and then
Theresa May made the same mistake with the general election.
Exactly. Do you remember thinking when David Cameron was the worst Prime Minister of recent memory, and Theresa May was like, hold my pims, I'm coming in.
On the topic of the island border, there's actually a question that's just actually come to my mind, which I think actually might be interesting. Some people might actually know the answer to this. Obviously, the EU already has significant land borders with Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Turkey. What does the state of that border look? I mean, is there a hard border on all of those borders right now?
Actually, yeah, there's one of them between Estonia and Russia. There's like a really small patch of land, Russia, that sticks out into Estonia. And because people use it as a shortcut to get from one part of Estonia to the other, they've set up a special agreement, but you're not allowed to stop the car. Otherwise, patrols come along and sort you out.
There's a great Tom Scott video on that.
That's the reason I know about it.
There we go.
Because there's actually some because the EU already has some really, really bloody long land borders with Finland between Norway and Sweden, because Norway's not technically an EU member. I mean, is that already hard? Because if some of that isn't hard, then couldn't we just have the same arrangement between Ireland and Northern Ireland?
Well, because Norway, even though it's not in the EU, it is in the Schengen area, which means free travel, freedom of movement. So when people talk about the Norway model for Brexit, that's going to leave the Brexiteers unhappy, because they want more than what Norway has. They want to stop freedom of movement.
Yeah. So what about the very long eastern land border then? Because we have a very long eastern land border with the EU. Is all of that in any way hard border right now?
I know that when we had the migrant crisis just over a year ago, they started thickening up the fence that was already there. So this is between, I think, Hungary and Croatia. I'm not even sure if Hungary shares a border with Croatia. That's embarrassing. But it was around that area where they are now building a very hard border indeed, a big concrete wall, where previously there was just a fence.
But there are some really, really... I mean, I don't know if you'd call it a hard border because there's the sea, but the controls at the borders of the European Union, at the edge of the European Union where the Mediterranean is, there are some, like, just really horrifying, really violent, brutal, like, border checks, because all the kind of little enclaves of, you know, Spain or France that are on... say North African soil, where you can have that are like near borders, or that are, you know, at an army base or something like that. Like those places, you know, if you look that kind of thing up, like there are so many harsh controls to prevent people coming into the or in the EU, that freedom of movement. I would be really, really shocked if there wasn't a hard border on the eastern side, because that is already something that we've seen on the southern side.
The thing that I still don't quite understand is if we do leave the EU, then we don't build a hard border, how is that actually practically going to cause a problem? So how could you take advantage of the fact that you can enter Northern Ireland, which is technically part of the non-EU UK? What can you then go and do?
You can take a ferry to England, and then you can like be undocumented in England.
Well, could they not now? Would the people of Northern Ireland mind if they said, from now on, to get the ferry over to England or Scotland, you need to show your passport, just in case we've got anyone who sneaked into the north?
It does kind of label Northern Ireland citizens as second-class British citizens.
You do need to show ID anyway.
But this is that thing, though.
Just because that would be, if it's the choice between you need a passport to get to the rest of the UK, that is surely preferable to you need a passport to go next door.
This is the thing, though. This is the thing. Like you're gonna have Sinn Féin use that as a push for a unified Ireland, and then that's gonna cause more tension. You know, no matter what happens, it's going to piss a lot of people off, and someone else is going to use it as a political advantage.
And whoever imagined before this last general election that we'd be talking about Northern Ireland quite so much? I mean, it was bad enough when it was just about the hard border, but now we're talking about the DUP possibly ruining the peace process.
It was absolutely surreal watching the election results come in, and then you were seeing like all the really respected like BBC politicians going, the DUP, I mean the Irish Unionist, the Ulster Unionist Democratic Party, and they're like fucking it up over and over again, and I'm like, oh my god, they don't have a clue, this is great. But yeah.
I really did like there was an Australian journalist who managed to cock it up spectacularly by saying Sinn Féin of the DUP, as if it was or something like that.
That was just tragic. Like, I don't expect, like, you see in terms of Wales, right, I know there's like Plaid Cymru, and then I know there's the SNP, so I don't know a lot about Scottish or Welsh politics, and I don't expect people to know a lot about Northern Irish politics as well, but even just a basic grasp considing what's happened here.
I don't expect people, I kind of expect, like, Dibbleby to know.
Well, this is the interesting thing, though, because, like, you know, when I know a lot of people, when you know, the general election happened, we're getting angry at Scotland. Oh, thanks Scotland, because Scotland, you know, voted quite a lot for the Tories. Yeah. But people forget in Scotland, though, that there is the devolved parliament, and when people are voting in Scotland, they're not necessarily voting for the UK, they're voting for Scotland. And when you're voting for Scotland, your sort of choice is, you know, I was going to say Angela Merkel. Nicola Sturgeon. who you know,
generic lady politician.
Yeah. Oh God.
That would have been an even wackier result in Scotland. A few seats go to the Tories, a few go back to the Lib Dems. The Christian Democratic Union Party of Germany picked up a seat. No one saw that one coming.
They did not. No, but like you know, a lot of people don't like Sturgeon because he's pushing for the independence thing too hard.
Well, the irony of it is that the reason the Tories got pushed so hard this election was because Ruth Davidson, the Scottish Tories, were pushing the hardest just against independence, and so a lot of people voted for them just because of that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people did, like, a lot of the people that vote SNP are people who were traditionally Labour. But the thing is, even though Corbyn is going back to more traditional Labour, Scottish Labour is still a bit of a shit show.
Yeah,
like Kezia Dugdale, the leader, is just she's basically people when people are voting for them, they're thinking about the Scottish leaders. Whereas even though the Scottish Labour that we are voting for isn't the same as the Labour we're voting for in a general election, so people get that confused.
That is like that's why the voting. That's the same in Northern Ireland. You know, you look at Northern Ireland, but you know the Conservatives and Labour just don't really have a presence there.
There is the Conservatives here. There was oh man, we got all the election junk through the post, right? And it's all like the local politicians being like, blah blah blah. I will do this for South Belfast. I will do this for South Belfast. And then you get the one from the Conservatives, and it's just been printed out, and it was like, I will support you in Belfast South, and you can just tell that it's just like they've read it off a scroll in the back of their hand.
Yeah.
So silly. But we have Tories here, but the Labour Party here is the SDLP, but that's sort of like a lighter nationalist party as opposed to like a Labour Party that would be part of the whole UK. It's weird.
How common is it for people that are born in one community to vote for a party of another because they're looking at the issue? So they're like, well, I know I'm born into a unionist family, but I like this other party's policy about fridge safety or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of did that this time, I guess. Like, I was leaning more... I grew up in East Belfast in a unionist background, although never really cared about it. And then the last election there, I was kind of looking more at People Before Profit, which is a more all-Ireland party. And then the Green Party as well, and they're just neutral.
My aunt was a high-ranking member of that before she left.
Ah.
She's an independent now in Ireland, independent TD. And it's, that's the problem when a lot of people think about these devolved parliaments, though. Because they think of it in the UK wide and they don't quite know enough about it, and they get pissed off at them for voting and go, oh, you've caused this. But remember, they're separate countries and they're not voting for the whole of the UK. Because a lot of it, England ignores them, so why should they give a shit about England? Kind of idea, you know.
Pretty much.
And one of the biggest issues now regarding the DUP is the Good Friday Agreement. Does anyone know much about the Good Friday Agreement? Because I actually don't know full details. I just know vaguely what it implies.
So, if over half of the community wants a border poll or Irish reunification, then it can happen, essentially. But there's a lot of other clauses and stuff as well. But basically, the DUP teaming up with big banter Theresa May has really put that in jeopardy, because now the British government can't be neutral in Northern Irish politics, which is really fucking stupid. And I still, to this day, I'm just like, every time I look at the news and I see Theresa May and Arlene Foster's face, I'm just like, why? What are they doing? Why is this happening?
Well, there's the whole thing with they're supposed to have equal, Sinn Féin and the DUP are supposed to have just equal say in British Parliament, and they clearly don't now. And there's obviously, I think the Good Friday Agreement relies on a lot of EU clauses as well, isn't there?
I think so. I'm going to be honest with you, I know not enough about it for being from Northern Ireland. I was only a wean at the time.
Oh, a wean.
A wean.
The weans are turned against us.
But essentially, it's in huge jeopardy because of what Theresa May has done, basically. By deliberately taking a side. Because Sinn Féin don't take their seats in Westminster either, they're abstentionist. Because to take your seats in Westminster, you have to give an oath to the Queen, I think. And they don't want to do that, obviously. Because then it would kind of legitimise that Northern Ireland is well and truly not part of the 32 county entity anymore. Do you know what I mean?
So those in Northern Ireland who vote for Sinn Féin, they're basically saying, please do not do anything for us. Like, we are voting ourselves out of the political process.
But Sinn Féin are a Northern Irish devolved parliament, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're represented in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, they have an all, like Jerry Adams is the All Ireland leader, and then in Northern Ireland, Michelle O'Neill is Michelle O'Neill is the leader.
How do most people who live in the Republic of Ireland, who technically have nothing to do with all of this, but how do they feel about reuniting with the north of their country? Like, is there a big movement in the Republic?
There's probably a lot of them. They're like, we don't want to take on their debt, and they're problematic orange people.
It's more like because I grew up in Dublin, and
I always forget that, Matt.
Yeah, well, I never knew. Interestingly, right? There's a Brad Pitt film about the Troubles. Brad Pitt.
Why?
I think Tom Hanks. I don't know, but it was filmed on the street I grew up on. And I still remember when I was about 4, 5, looking outside the window, there's tanks everywhere, and there's people firing guns, and there's
oh no,
fucking war zone. We're just fucking filming a Brad Pitt film, and I never really knew. I never knew about the Troubles. And the general attitude is that people don't really give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of I think the attitude in Ireland, from what I gather, is sort of, if they want to rejoin, okay, just fucking calm down.
It's
a bit.
more like, you know, Usins don't want this, and they don't want this down south, so we're kind of fucked. Because like, there are, you know, there's people who are like, right, okay, 32 county Ireland, let's take the occupied 6 counties back, like legally occupied Protestant invasion, and like, there's people down south who would happily welcome us back. But then I imagine there is a lot there, like, in terms of debt and just the absolute nightmare that would be the sort of more Protestant unionist people. And also as well, I don't know how, the main thing that would want me to stay within the UK would be the NHS, because I would be absolutely fucked for health wise if we had to adopt Ireland's health system, because you have to pay for like a GP appointment, and I'd be like bankrupt instantly.
I think you pay for GP, isn't it? But emergency care and stuff's covered.
I think so, but even that, that's still like, I don't even know if prescriptions are free or not.
Oh, this is so hard for all of you.
Oh bless.
Republican
so
healthcare plan. Ugh. Good job. Don't talk about the American. I think from what I know, like the Irish healthcare system, it's privatized for some parts, but I think the insurance is reasonably cheap, but it's not like the American system in that sense. I think it's
not as bad as the American one.
I think it's reasonably fine to deal with. Like, cause my uncle has cystic fibrosis, and he has always been able to get the care he needs, even when he took a lot of time, and he was always able to get the care he needed.
I mean, the thing is, if you want an insurance system that is for profit, you can make a fuck ton of money without being as batshit as the American system. Like, that's not, that's not the problem. Like, plenty of places have slightly privatized health systems.
Oh yeah,
that make a little bit of money, but that are not as insane.
If you were to actually go into the French system, Clex, the French system is actually an interesting counterpoint to some of the other systems we're discussing right now.
Of health insurance?
Yes.
I mean, so we have like a national health insurance system in the same way that we have the NHS in the UK. You just have an insurance card that you bring with you to the doctors. You have to sign up with a specific GP, and if you sign up with a specific GP, then you can just beep your card and you don't have to pay any money. But if you go to like a different GP, if you go in an emergency in another town or whatever, then you have to pay, and first later. There's something with the you don't pay for prescriptions themselves, but if you go over a certain amount of medicine, if you go over like say like 50 boxes of pills or whatever, then you have to start paying for everything. I believe you pay 50 euro cents per box of pills. So you have a prescription, you have to buy 4 things, you pay 2 euros. It's changed a lot since I was a kid, and all these things have been kind of put in. When I was a kid, you had to go to the doctor and you had to just give them money, and then you'd be reimbursed later, but you would always be reimbursed. Whereas now, if it's not your assigned GP, then you don't get the money back, but if it's your assigned GP, you don't have to give the money in the first place, so that's quite good. But it's also causing GPs quite a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a faff, really.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
better if it was just free all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you look at. I always find this interesting. I wasn't aware Scotland had free prescriptions and free eye tests. I was not aware Scotland had slightly different NHS.
Oh wait, does England not have free prescriptions?
No, we pay £7 flat fee for any prescription.
Any?
If you have a chronic condition, you can get a prescription exemption, which I have because I have to get prescriptions on a very, very regular basis. But you know, it's
not too.
a fact. You have to apply to it in whatever.
You can buy like cards as well, like £20.
I don't think I can afford the antidepressants to remain listening to this conversation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, £7. We have to pay £7 for any prescription we want, Kevin. It's
all these free tablets help me.
And it's a bit frustrating for some things, because, you know, I got prescribed antihistamines, for example, and antihistamines are incredibly cheap to buy over the counter, but, you know, you
had to pay £7 to get them from your shop.
Yeah, you know, the £1 in Tesco and the £7 from the fucking, you know, so I end up just throwing away the prescriptions. But it's not too bad. But, you know, I was always surprised to learn that, you know, Scotland has free prescriptions. Does Northern Ireland have free prescriptions as well? Is that?
It doesn't age. Yeah, it didn't. About 10 years ago, I think it was introduced.
So that's interesting. That's sort of a factor that devolved parliaments.
Yeah, like healthcare is one of the things we actually do have completely devolved. And so basically any decisions that Westminster makes on their healthcare doesn't affect ours at all. Well, I mean, it'll affect ours indirectly, but like if they decide, right, we're going to start charging for prescriptions, or we're going to start charging a lot of money for prescriptions, Scotland's just, it doesn't matter in that sense. Like, we don't need to then start paying for prescriptions because it's Scottish based. So we've got the Scottish NHS.
You have free uni as well, don't you?
Yep. Well, see, this is the thing. Trying to explain to people how our uni funding works is weird because it's not. You can't just. It's not like anyone can just turn up and go to uni for free. Basically, there's like a fund, and you get 4 or 5 years, depending on what length your course is, of paid tuition. And then say you leave and then go back for another degree, you then need to pay for that degree.
It's more like it's more like a grant, isn't it?
Yeah. So but the thing is, even when you pay for uni in Scotland, it's for Scottish and EU citizens, it's £1,820, I think, for a year. Whereas in England, it can be up to 9,000.
That's still so cheap, yeah.
Yeah,
we didn't get the 9k.
Because it's funny because of the EU equality laws, people from anywhere in the EU can come to Scotland for free for uni for free, whereas people from England, Wales, and Northern Ireland have to pay the UK rates, which is really weird. It's just a weird fact of the way the country's run.
Kevin just fucking sat here grumbling. Oh, you've all got so hard.
Oh no, £1,000 a year for uni. Woo.
Yeah, that sounds really terrible.
I'm so sorry, Kevin.
I don't know how you guys are putting up with that.
I'm so sorry.
I'm actually curious. Like I'm an Irish citizen and a British citizen. And
right.
as an EU citizen, I'd be able to get free Scottish university, but as a British citizen, I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just basically decide which citizenship you want to use for that. So you would just say you are an Irish citizen, and then you would get the free uni. That's as far as I'm aware. And the only experience I have with it is one of my friends is from Denmark, and another one of my friends is from Germany, and they both get free uni in Scotland.
That was one of my factors in getting an Irish passport in 6th year when I was deciding about unis, because I was like, if I do go to Scotland, I might as well get this so I can go in for free.
Go in.
Yeah, it's one of the perks of not being in the UK is you can come to Scotland for free uni.
Yeah, well, there's like that attitude of just being able to go over. Do you all think that, you know, having a hard Brexit and having a border wall, having that attitude change would cause more problems in both Scotland and the UK and, you know, Ireland in general?
Well, we all hope not, but the whole point of the EU is to make us not worry about this sort of thing potentially happening. And now we do have to worry. And even though it's, you know, likely that there won't be a hard border, the fact that we now are talking about it, that's enough of a problem. And then, let's not forget that Scotland just might have an independence referendum. It seems unlikely now, but that could still go ahead, and if it does, is there now going to be a potential hard border between England and Scotland?
Which probably
well, I think a lot of that also depends on if we get into the EU. If we did go independent, like if we didn't get into the EU, it might be a case of you have a sort of soft border with the UK. But if we go into the EU, you might need to build it up.
That's really tricky though, because if Scotland were to become independent and then petition to get into the EU, then, you know, the thing right now with Brexit is that the UK is instigating this process to get out of the EU, and the EU, everyone else in the EU is just like, this is too much of a faff, we don't want to be dealing with this, we just wish you guys wouldn't do this. Whereas, you know, if the UK leaves the EU, Scotland becomes independent and then Scotland petitions to get into the EU, the rest of the EU is not going to be all like, yes, please come in, because when that's a huge issue.
Cat can't decide if it wants to go in or out, and you're like, fucking, come on, go. And suddenly Scotland's like,
I think a lot of the problem with the Scotland situation is that you're getting mixed messages. So some EU ministers are saying, yeah, Scotland would be no problem, you could come back in, you get a fast track in, it'd be fine, we'd be happy to have you. And then you have a couple other people that are like, well, no, you'd still need to go through the regular process. And so nobody really knows. And I think it actually would depend on if we had the independence referendum before or after the UK left the EU.
And are there some countries that specifically want to boycott Scotland coming into the EU?
Yes,
like Spain, for example.
Yeah,
they don't want to encourage. Oh, we haven't even talked about Gibraltar. That's a whole nother thing.
I've been looking at a map of Gibraltar this entire time. Just waiting.
I mean, it's just a mess, isn't it? It's causing a lot of that. I think that's also part of the problem of having devolved governments, is it's not as simple as just, oh, this is the powers that your government's getting now, that's all sorted. They then need to be sorted down to other governments, and other countries need to decide what they want, and the UK government needs to decide if they want to give us the powers. But then it gets really complicated at that sort of level, I think.
This situation completely has been caused by the Conservative government.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no doubt.
Cool. Yeah, like the missteps of literally just Cameron and just May, pretty much. Like what?
Cameron gets off so free from this because he left at the right time that it looks like it was all Theresa May's fault, and so a lot of people actually are still like, oh yeah, David Cameron was actually quite good, considering. You're like, well, no, this was his fault. Yeah, he just left. He did a Tony Blair and left at the right time.
Pig and trigger this shit.
Yeah, he did what Tony Blair did and left. I was left it to Gordon Brown.
Just know when to get out. Tony Blair knew the right moment to just walk away.
Tony Blair left, and then Gordon Brown's the one that looks awful. And I think Theresa May's had the exact same thing.
Comparing Cameron to May is like comparing cutting your hand off to cutting your arm off. So they're still shit. Like, it's still both.
Yeah, I still rather have neither.
It is that, you know, we look at, you know, the resurgence in Labour, and I was quite surprised at the resurgence in Labour, because, you know, when Corbyn came out, and he was just basically a wet fish for months. And months and months, and there was a whole like train thing where you know, walk through it, fucking half empty train to go sit on the floor and complain there was no seats, and you know, all that bollocks. And I'm actually quite surprised Labour had such a, you know, boost.
I think the last month to month, well, it was pretty much just a month of campaigning, but that month of campaigning before the general election was really strong for Labour.
Yes,
but also because Theresa May was such a mess.
Yeah.
It just, all Corbyn needed to do was be reasonable.
Yeah, he just had to point behind him and say, how about those arseholes?
Yeah. But interestingly though, like in Liverpool Central, where I live, Labour, Liverpool's such a Labour safety, you know. But they had, I think last vote they had 70% of the vote, Labour. And second was the Greens with about 10%, and then, you know, Conservatives were fourth with about 5% of the vote. But interestingly, this time, the amount of Tory votes didn't change. Basically, all the Green voters stopped voting for Green and then voted to Labour, because Labour's obviously went more to the left and appealing to those groups more. And it seems to be a lot of... It's less people turning from the Tories, and more people who either were voting for other left-wing parties or weren't voting at all, being encouraged to vote for Labour.
UKIP.
Well, yeah, a lot of the UKIP voters just fucked off and voted for the Tories.
But you did see
a lot of swing for Labour as well. You could just got annihilated, which was good. But yeah.
Yeah, even in seats that the Tories held, in a lot of England especially, even in seats the Tories held, Labour made like 10% gains on their votes and nearly like took it off them, you know? Labour were making a lot of gains in Tory strongholds.
Do you think if there was another election, Labour would win?
Oh yeah.
I think it's possible, yeah.
It's hard to say because we're all getting very excited about how unexpectedly well Labour did, and we're saying, wow, can you believe that Jeremy Corbyn, who originally was expected to get only 3 votes because everybody hates him so much, look how well he did. But then once you settle and look at the actual result, he still lost by a good 60 seats.
Yeah.
And we might have nothing to celebrate, because what if this is the best that Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party can ever do?
Oh, nice.
I would doubt that, because there's an element to which when you think someone can't win, then that biases the end result. If you go into it thinking Jeremy Corbyn can't win, people are potentially more willing to maybe back the Liberal Democrat candidate, even if they want to stop the Tories, or are more likely to be apathetic in general. I think actually it would be interesting to run an election now where people think, if under the understanding Jeremy Corbyn might have a chance, potentially he could get an even stronger showing. That is not necessarily going to happen, but I think it is feasible.
The thing that shocks me with both of these situations, though, is that it seems that the public decides exactly how they feel the week after the election, and this is the same with the referendum. We're like, oh well, actually, never mind. We could get things straight like a little bit in advance, and it'd seem a lot easier. I don't know.
Well, you can literally, if you go like in the new year and you join up to a gym contract, within the next 7 days you can change your mind and just say no, but once you put that vote in, you're stuck with it for 4 years, and they get to run the country. I think you should have 7 days to take your vote back if you're unsatisfied.
There is a party that suggested that after every referendum or election from now on, we have a 2-week cooling off period. Like, if you're sure that you're happy with the way you voted, then you can vote again. This is one of the policies of the monster raving loony party.
I would support that. I think there should be a 7-day cooling off period where if you're completely dissatisfied with how it turns out, you can change your vote within 7 days.
Have you seen Lord Buckethead's policies? Because he's
incredible.
Quite decent.
Oh, well, he was on John Oliver's show, wasn't he?
He was at Glastonbury as well.
Fucking Lord Buckethead.
Corbyn and Lord Buckethead.
Headlining.
Why didn't we invite him, Matt?
Yeah. Just watch Lord Buckethead win the next bloody take May's seat from her in the next general election.
I mean, that would be gorgeous.
Did you see that political episode of Black Mirror? Where they had like a political character.
With the bear.
The one with the blue teddy bear thing, whatever it was, the blue creature.
Yeah, they just went around insulting everyone and then won.
Well, that's basically Trump. That's basically Trump. It's like a reality TV star who people think is hilarious. Wouldn't it be funny if, hypothetically, this was a politician? And
it's less funny than we thought.
This is the problem, is that Black Mirror is getting too documentary non-fiction-like in the last couple of years. I'm quite scared.
David Cameron fucking a pig.
There's the pig.
It's a very low plane.
I think it's a motorbike.
Yeah.
It might be like a wee propeller plane.
Oh, are you wondering what that noise was?
Yes.
Oh.
No, that's fine.
So basically, I was driving before. I've just pulled over because my signal kept going, and then I got bored and drove on, and then I stopped somewhere else. I'm now on a lay-by the A127, and that was a motorbike.
Oh, okay.
If you're just joining us, we've got Jay Foreman out in the nation, getting the pulse of the people.
Their pulse is windy.
I've stopped in a business park by the motorway, and there's no one here to talk to. And people driving past are seeing me pacing up and down, ranting with my hands.
Nerd news over and out.
Go and find a business in the business park and ask them what their opinion is.
Do you support Brexit? Like, no, we need the money!
Well, around here, this is Brexit territory. I'm in the outskirts of Southend, in the middle of Essex. This is about as Brexit as the south of England gets. Kind of scared to talk to people.
They'll kick you out. They'll kick you out. They'll pick you up. They'll throw you away.
You'll be condemned to Foulness Island, which is somewhere nearby to you. I just looked.
Wow.
If you head just slightly east of where you are, you will reach Foulness Island.
Why'd you do this, John?
Because we know where he is, so I looked it up on Google Maps, and Foulness Island is right there.
Foulness Island, is that where...
Foulness Island,
is that where Boris Johnson wants to build a new airport?
Quite possibly.
Apparently only 151 people live there.
Yeah. But there is the Foulness Heritage Centre if you want to learn more about Foulness Island.
Oh, wow.
It's closed today, however, unfortunately.
How do you close an island?
Some facts. Oh, they let their website lapse. I should buy it now and sell it back to them later.
Okay, you're going to buy foulnessisland.com.
I'm going to buy Foulness Island's website and then let them know that they let it lapse, and now I have it. But for £1,000, I shall return it to them unharmed.
You know it's a good place when you go on their Wikipedia page and there's a whole section about a flood where the death counts are talking about animals instead of people.
In all fairness, it does look from the amount of rivers on there like the sort of place that does just exist to flood, pretty much.
Doesn't even have street view.
As far as I can tell, there's they've got a heritage centre, a post office, one farm, and then it's nothing but rivers.
Seriously, they've got a count for every type of animal that died, including budgies. Apparently 4 budgies died in the 1953 flood of Foulness Island.
How did budgies die in a flood?
Can't they
put them underwater? They can't breathe, man. Come on!
Jeez.
They just fly over the water.
No,
sorry,
than that. They have to keep on flying, and they can't tread air long enough without getting tired. And
it's a tiny island. They can fly to the other island.
Sorry, they were the ones that were rescued. It's fine, the budgies were rescued. You know, all those stranded budgies lying out there.
Oh, thank God.
That was all I really wanted to hear, you know.
Thank God those budgies were saved in the end.
I'm not even sure how you're supposed to get to the Foulness Heritage Centre. There's not there's any, bridges or anything.
I think you have to hire your own boat.
I think you might actually have to get a bridge. There's a
bridge, John. There's a bridge to the left. The left.
Yeah, John's not just very
I see the one bridge. You mean the bridge by Potton Islands? I see the bridge there, but then there's no bridge for the river beyond Potton Islands.
Where the fuck are you looking? We're really distracted.
There's a whole section about its sea defences. Apparently they have a sea defence system.
Yes, did you see the thing about the Official Secrets Act warning? And it's they do MOD testing there. Seems like a really spooky island.
On the subject of defensive walls, Gibraltar. There we go. That's a segue.
Here we go.
Hey.
Let's talk about Gibraltar. I don't know much about Gibraltar. Jay Foreman, let's talk about Gibraltar.
I've been to Gibraltar. I went there last year. I can tell you all about Gibraltar. So basically, when they did the Brexit referendum last year, and they had this little map of the UK for how each constituency was voting, and there's this weird extra lump of Gibraltar, which, if you don't know, is a British overseas territory, which is and I use the word in massive inverted commas because it upsets people, in Spain. It's basically Spain, but don't tell the British people that live there on that tiny island, there's only 30,000 of them, don't tell them they're in Spain, it's been British for hundreds of years. But anyway, they are part of the EU, and they voted by an astonishing majority to stay, something ridiculous like 98%, the sort of election result you only ever see in Crimea or other places where you sort of suspect that it can't possibly be how they really voted. And the reason that they voted so strongly in favour of remaining is because without the EU, they are fucked. Absolutely fucked. Because Spain, next door, claimed Gibraltar for themselves. And they are very, very bitter about there being a little chunk of non-Spain in Spain. The only reason that they actually allow any kind of movement at all between the tricky border between Gibraltar, which is basically Britain, and Spain, is because the EU requires them to. Without the EU, Spain could effectively shut Gibraltar off and blackmail them into joining Spain. So there's a whole shit show there that hasn't been discussed. And the reason it's not been discussed is because it's only 20,000 people that live there. But it is a shit show nonetheless.
I just looked at the turnout. They voted 96% remain with a turnout of 84%.
That's quite impressive, but then there's not much else to do in Gibraltar.
It's quite a lot. I don't know much about Spanish politics, but the implication I seem to be getting here is they are somewhat anti-British.
They're not anti-Britain per se, but they're anti-Britain's claim to the Rock of Gibraltar. Even though it's been British for hundreds of years, it's attached to Spain, and Spain wants it for themselves because it's a valuable port. There's fish, there's oil. I'm not sure about oil. Why did I say oil? But there's something to do with oil. In Gibraltar.
It's got a nice...
It's always oil, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always oil.
Yes, we are just basically running a tax haven and also a series of extremely dodgy gambling operations out of there.
It's such a weird place. I went there just because I was nearby in Spain and I was determined to see this piece of not quite Britain, especially because Brexit was about to happen and I didn't know whether it would still be there in a few years' time. And it's like going to Plymouth, except the weather's really hot and people are driving on the right.
Do people there have British passports then? I don't really know much about it.
Yes, they do.
Yes, there. Yeah.
It's basically the same as living in, say, Jersey or the Isle of Man, where it's part of the UK, sort of. You have a British passport, and if something really terrible happens, it'll be the British Army that comes along to sort it out.
But they're crown dependencies, aren't they? Did Jersey and the Isle of Man and all vote in Brexit?
Ah, well, here's the interesting thing. The Channel Islands and the Isle of Man, they are not part of the EU. So even now, while we're still members of the EU, if you make a phone call between the British mainland and Jersey, it's more expensive than if you call France. Because Jersey is technically abroad as far as the phone is concerned, and it's not part of the EU. So that's an anomaly, and also the Channel Islands don't send any MPs into Westminster. Come to think
These are all things that I had to learn for the British citizenship test and I've since forgotten.
Yeah, that probably means that you know more about British history.
Yeah, you know more about this.
Yeah.
Nah, because I did my citizenship test a couple of years ago and then realised that all of the rules for British citizenship had changed in the couple of years since I'd first looked them up. And so I had a lot of... I might have to do it again, and I will be sad if that's the case, because it's 50 quid and you have to, cram for it quite a bit.
Is it like hazard perception
once,
thing?
they make you pass it again.
The point... Yeah, so what you hear about as an EU citizen is that, if you live somewhere else in the EU... and in my case, in the UK, if you're an EU citizen and you live in the UK, if you've been here for 5 years, you have indefinite leave to remain because you're an EU citizen, and that's how it works. And if you stay here for 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. So that's kind of what I assumed. So around the time that I'd been here for 5 years, I started looking it up, and it was all like, you need to pay £1,000. So I started saving money, once I had the money saved up, and once at the time that it was convenient for me to start doing it, around other stuff that I was doing in my life, I started looking it up, and I started printing out the form for citizenship, and I'd already, as I was saving my £1,000, I was doing stuff like sitting the citizenship test and sitting the language test, which I need to do, even though I'm qualified to teach English as a foreign language, but that doesn't prevent you from sitting a language test, apparently. I print out this form and I start reading it, and I realize it wants me to give a number for something else, which is the residency, your residency number, your residency application that you supposedly already have done. And that's a thing that you don't know about if you're an EU citizen and you come and live in the UK, is that it's actually a lot more difficult to apply for citizenship than they tell you. This idea of freedom of movement, yes, you can kind of come and go now, but to remain, there are quite a lot of different rules. And currently, if you want to remain in the UK, you have to apply for a residency card, which you have to have been here for 5 years. You have to justify a whole number of things, like you have to put in all your addresses in the UK, you have to put in every single time you've left the UK for, since you've arrived, so thank goodness you can just look up all your flights in your email, because otherwise you'd be screwed. There are things that make sense, you have to be a resident, so you have to not be out of the country for 6 months of the year. That makes sense, but there are there's a lot of it that is stuff that we just don't know about. In particular, something that's caught a lot of different people is that you in work, and that's full-time work, or you are considered, there's several types of description of what you do that you can have. And if you're not in work, say if you're raising a family, or if you're working part-time, or if you're volunteering or whatever, because you're not in work and you're not paying NI contributions, you need to have a European insurance, health insurance card, which is something that literally I had never heard about until I saw this paperwork. And a lot of people don't know about it. It's something that only came into law in 2012, but it's retroactive. So when I'd been here for 5 years, I couldn't actually apply for the residency card after 5 years because, like, the first couple years that I was here, I was a student and then I was working part-time and whatever until I got my first proper job. And I didn't have that card because at the time in 2008, 2009, it wasn't a requirement. So I didn't have it because I didn't know about it, and also it wasn't a requirement. And now it's become a requirement, and all these people who've been in the UK for, you know, 20, 25, 30 years, who have raised families, who, you know, maybe they work part-time in the last 5 years because they're, like, retired with a volunteering job or a part-time job, and all they did all these years was raising a family, and now they have to fill out this, like, 80-page form to say that they're, like, a valid person that's not a scrounger.
Oh god, I hate it when people are like racist and xenophobic regarding that, because it is really fucking hard just to prove, like, oh okay, I'm meant to be here, and people are, oh, they're just lazy, they can't be bothered going back home and stuff. It's like, no, it's really fucking hard to, like, stay here, stop being so racist.
Well, imagine what would happen if British people had to sit that test, though.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if British people had to go through all that process just to continue living here? Like, I reckon a lot of people would get kicked out.
I mean, you know, given the amount of bullshit that people believed in the Brexit campaign about Europe and about the UK, people just don't know what the facts are. And
that includes the people in charge, like the government.
Absolutely.
Encouraging Brexit to happen. They haven't got any more of a clue than the people that voted for them.
Yeah, because they're looking forward to being able to step down and then not having to deal with it.
It's that, but are you, you know, as your narrow bargaining chip for Theresa May, like, are you worried?
Well, I submitted my application for residency on the 18th of June of last year, so, you know, my goal was to get it in before the Brexit referendum, and I managed to do that by about a week. So I now have a permanent residency card that arrived in November, and now I have to wait a year.
There's a small part of you that was a little bit pleased that we voted for Brexit, because it now means that you did do the right thing to get in early.
Yeah.
Nah, not really though. I mean, I'm not worried because I'm like a middle-class white lady, and I'm like, I mean, I don't believe in, like, they cannot fire all the European citizens. Like, it's just not possible. Like, London is the 6th biggest French city in terms of the amount of fucking French people there are in London compared to other towns in France, right?
Wow.
Like, there are a fuck ton of us. And I don't actually think it's possible to, you know, Theresa May's bottom of the line option, like Theresa May's shittiest offer to the EU that she went in saying we're so generous, is that people currently in the UK, EU citizens currently in the UK and coming in for the next couple of years grace period, have the rights that we currently have, and then we'll be on whatever immigration system exists later. So I'm planning to apply for citizenship in November as soon as I can do it, because after you get the residency card you need to reside for a year before you can apply for citizenship. And hopefully I can become a citizen, and hopefully that makes me a lot safer. I can have dual citizenship. I'm not worried for myself because I just, like, I don't foresee a situation where, like, it goes bad enough that they have to expend the sort of political capital that it would take to say, you know, no one who's not British can... I mean, that's nonsense. Like, for one thing, the NHS would collapse. Like, that's just not possible.
I completely agree with you. Yes, it's absolute nonsense. But on the other hand, so many other things that have happened, we've said with similar conviction, that'll never happen, that's just nonsense.
Yeah, the fact you even need to think about it and say, oh, I'm sure it won't happen, right? Like, it's kind of, like, it's just a really unfair pressure on you, and it makes you feel unwelcome, and it makes all the other EU citizens feel unwelcome. It's just shit. The whole thing's just shit.
They should go back to their own country. I
mean, you know, I was in my local Spoons the day, I think, before, the day before the Brexit result. I was in my local Spoons and I was having a drink with a friend of mine who's American and who was at the time running a Worldcon. organizing the World Science Fiction Convention that happens in August, and so we were having a drink because I was trying to talk me into volunteering for the thing, and he's American. I clearly sound a little bit weird and foreign, particularly if I'm talking to an American. And we're in Spoons, and this drunk guy in Spoons starts like asking us fairly aggressively where we're from, and like, I'm from around the corner, like I live around the corner, you know, like this was in Haringey, where like I lived for many years there, you know, and
I think you passed the citizenship test simply because you call it Spoons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't drink tea properly, so.
That's it. Fuck out. Away you go.
Out of our country.
Not British enough, I'm afraid.
The thing is, I don't drink red wine either, so I'm not sure I can go back to France. Fucked, basically.
I mean, do you like cheese at the very least?
Yes, I do.
Okay, there we go. That's something.
Yeah, but it's banned now. Sorry, no more cheese. Brexit.
Damn.
It's gone.
It's such a fucking trap, you know.
If you really want to get rid of all the French people in the UK, then you need to like ban cheese. And we'll all leave.
Well, then I'd leave the UK.
Yeah.
I'm not living in a place with no cheese. Fuck that.
Oh wait, they can get rid of the French and the Scots at the same time.
That's it. God, that's the plan.
They banned Bucky as well. So.
No, you can't do that. That's illegal.
They banned Bucky.
Buckfast.
Well, all the Neds leave. It's great.
I was thinking about
you. Yeah, Claire went straight to being worried about Captain America's friend being banned. Tell me I'm wrong, Claire.
Poor Bucky Barnes.
I was literally saying that.
You can't ban Buckish.
I think if they banned Iron Brew, there would be a revolution. Almost definitely. I can confirm. At least I would revolt. I don't know about anybody else.
Just to be clear for Claire, that's a drink, not the Scottish pronunciation of Iron Man. Just so we're again, we're not in Marvel.
I know what Iron Brew is.
Oh, do you though?
I mean, I've not had it because it's bright orange and that's
really nice.
Weird.
It's lovely.
But, you know.
I love it.
I love any time I go to Scotland and you're.
Oh, look at me! I'm Claire. I want to be British, but I won't try fucking Iron Brew. Fuck
you
off,
need to
Frenchie.
try it. It's so good on the boat to Scotland. It's like, what would you like with your breakfast? Would you like tea, coffee, Iron Brew? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to Scotland, all right.
I find it so weird when I'm in other. I find it so weird when I'm in other countries and I go into like a McDonald's or whatever because I hate myself and I say to them, oh yeah, they're like, what drink do you want? Oh, can I have an Iron Brew? We don't do that. I'm like, what? What do you mean you don't do Iron Brew? What am I supposed to drink then?
I've heard that Scotland is the only place on earth where there is a soft drink more popular than Coke, and it's Scotland. It's Iron Brew.
Yeah, that's. I could believe that. I think I go through like many cans a week.
I actually really want some now.
I've got like 20 cans in the fridge.
Too Old for Twitter, sponsored by Iron Brew. Brewed in Cumbernauld.
Is it?
It is.
It is.
Yeah. That's where what's the guy from Late Late Show? What's his name? Fuck.
Craig Ferguson?
Craig Ferguson.
Yes, that's where he's from. He's from the same place as Iron Brew.
Does that mean that Cumbernauld smells of Iron Brew?
No, it's an absolute fucking shithole.
Well, yes, in Scotland, what would you expect?
No. Like, imagine a shithole. Like, imagine a Hull, right? Imagine, like, not even Hull. Imagine a Grimsby, right? Imagine Grimsby. And imagine something 10 times worse than Grimsby. Then you have fucking Cumbernauld.
I heard it was like the Milton Keynes of Scotland.
Ugh.
But it hasn't improved and changed over time like Milton Keynes has.
Clearly not. Ugh. Cumbernauld. Yeah. But, like...
Even the name, it sounds like an affliction.
It really does.
I've been really Cumbernauld today.
I mean, there's quite a lot of cities in Scotland you could probably apply that to. Tell you what, never go to Dundee. Just don't. Just don't go to Dundee.
What part of Scotland are you from?
Glasgow. I'm from the good part.
Oh yeah, fucking what, traffic cone on head, man.
You've got me there. That's one of our biggest tourist landmarks, is the fact that we put a traffic cone and a statue.
That really sells Scotland. Like, you know what? Maybe you should have an independence fucking referendum, because
you can buy T-shirts with the Wellington statue with his cone on his head, and we now put a cone on the horse as well, because they get fed up of taking it down every week, so they just stopped. So we had to find some new way to entertain ourselves. So there's now a cone on the horse as well.
Great, Scotland.
When I went to Scotland in November, you could buy like little key rings with the traffic cone and little T-shirts with it. I was like, wow, they really love VLC in Scotland.
Jesus.
Just because I'm so sorry for Scotland right now. I went to Edinburgh not long ago and it was lovely. Seemed a really nice place.
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry.
Is it not the really wanky bit of Scotland?
Yeah, it's the wanky posh bit of Scotland where fucking the Harry Potter woman lives.
Edinburgh is where people go when they want to be tourists and do touristy things. Glasgow is where people want to go if they want to actually, like, live a normal life.
Normal life in Glasgow. Fuck off.
I saw, ages ago I went to Glasgow, and in the airport they had this big poster advertising all of the things to do in Glasgow, and it had all of the, like, the clubbing scene, the museum, the art, the culture, and then the tagline says, well, you didn't come for the weather.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I always remember in quotes, terrorist attack on the Glasgow airport, because the biggest news story to come out of it was a man got famous because he kicked a flaming terrorist in the balls.
Yeah.
That sounds very Scottish.
I think that represents Glasgow perfectly.
Yeah. See, like, culturally, I noticed Glasgow's like a lot like Dublin or Liverpool. In a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Probably because it used to be a massive shipyard and it's now trying to find its identity again.
Well, yeah, once all the shipbuilding died, which was fun. Yeah, I mean, it's basically, like, I went to Dublin and it was scary how similar the two cities actually are.
Yeah, when I visited Glasgow, I was like, if Belfast hadn't had the Troubles and was maybe like 30 years ahead, this is what it would be like.
Yeah, if it wasn't horribly behind, it'd be like, you know.
It would be Glasgow.
If we hadn't been completely bombed, we might be Glasgow.
You know what?
You know what? Maybe you've got off light there.
You know what?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a good aspiration.
The Gaza Strip, if it hadn't had the whole, you know, all the problems, it'd probably be a lot like Dubai, really. You know, just...
If there were no problems, maybe we'd all be doing really well.
Do come visit Belfast. It's definitely a lot better. Belfast has improved.
Enough about the EU, and we now suddenly remember that there's the Middle East.
Yeah.
There's all the problems there.
Interestingly, I've never been to Northern Ireland. I've been to Scotland, Wales, and England, and I'm from Ireland, but I've never been to Northern Ireland. I kind of don't want to go.
I went to Belfast once. It was okay.
No, I was going around...
Just okay.
Well, no, I was going around Dublin, right, and there's a big fucking poster advertising Belfast, and it's going, oh, come to Belfast, we made the Titanic. It's like, oh, the best thing you did was make a ship that sank. Good job, Belfast. That's the best oh, we'd thank you for New York advertising itself for going, oh, the Twin Towers blew up here. It's like, good for you. Great. Good job.
Oh, come see the Twin Towers of Northern Ireland. Yeah, it's bad. Like, they built the Titanic Museum to be like, oh, look, we made a Titanic here, and they've got a big Titanic sign, and there's Titanic tours, and then they named the whole area that's all in the Titanic Quarter, and it's meant to be the kind of up-and-coming, like, fancy apartments, businesses, come over American tech companies and put your big businesses in the Titanic Quarter, it won't sink. And you're just like...
That area is unsinkable.
It's too big, like it's just the tagline of the entire business, like, banking business area, it's too big to fail.
Yeah,
that area is so great it doesn't need any lifeboats.
Yeah, the Titanic Quarter.
To be fair, they did build the Britannic as well, so...
Yeah. You can see the whole, like, dry docks and stuff that they launched some of the boats from. It is kind of cool, so you should come along anyway and check it out.
I like that we spent
This message is brought to you by the Belfast Tourism Council.
We spent a lot of this talking about the Troubles and terrorism and how Northern Ireland is just a melting pot of trouble.
So come and visit.
Come and visit Northern Ireland. I mean, you know what, right? It's better than North Korea. Northern Ireland, better than North Korea. Better north than North Korea.
Northern Ireland
I think you're right. We spent about an hour and a half just scratching the surface and setting the context for two probably relatively small issues in the whole mass of issues that make up Brexit. This is how complicated the bloody thing's going to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it frustrates me. Here's a question: do any of you think there should be a second Brexit referendum?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I don't know.
Not because I think that it's politically supposed to happen, not because I think that we deserve it. I just really, really want it to happen because I know what the result would be.
Yeah, well, exactly. We know how it would turn out.
I want
the
them to
problem is,
at least...
if it goes to Remain, at that point it's 1-1. Surely at that point we need to have a decider.
Oh, like a
penalty shot. Just
I mean, let's be clear. The people
Nigel Farage and Jeremy
if they
Corbyn.
get one victory and then Remain gets one victory, they're not going to sit down and take it. There's going to be a demand for a third one to settle it.
Yeah.
So can we go best out of 3?
Can we just have like Nigel Farage and Jeremy Corbyn just having like a fight off? Just like a fight.
I don't trust Corbyn that much. He's a fighter. I think bring Nicola Sturgeon in because I think she's scrappy.
They could main event Brexit.
No, I mean like a Tekken fight.
Brexit.
I mean, like they actually have a best of 7 in Tekken.
Well,
just see how that goes.
Well, see, this is the interesting thing because, you know, as much as there's a lot of justification for there being a second referendum, and the fact that just there was a lot of miscommunication, especially now.
You mean lies?
Yeah, well, lies. And you know, the idea of, you know, it was never really a vote for what kind of Brexit. If you want a hard Brexit, a soft Brexit, or if you want a red, white, and blue Brexit.
This is starting to sound more like an escort service than a political decision.
But you know, there is that justification. Then obviously you deal with the fact of, you know, do you just have votes until you get the result you want, and that's obviously a massive issue if you do a second one. If people are going to say that. And it's
Well,
the same
that
with the
would be
Scottish
a good
Pence.
excuse for a second referendum is if you say, okay, now that we have more facts, now that we know the different kinds of Brexits there are, you know, now you actually can choose, do you want this or not? That's the justification for it, but everybody knows, you know, I'm willing to admit that I'm just a Ramona who's saying, no, not fair, I want to do it again, it's not what I want. But the only reason that I'm taking such an unreasonable stance is because I genuinely do believe that Brexit really is as fucking awful as the Ramonas are saying, and that we are so screwed that I am, you know, happy to admit that I'm clutching at the straws. Anything we can do to prevent it from happening.
I voted Remain, and I'm still happy with that decision. However, I think with the rise of like the sort of Tommy Robinson-esque, really super white nationalist people now here like leave means leave, I just think it would like divide the country even more if there was a second referendum. And Article 50 is already triggered. Unless we can untrigger that, we just have to.
A lot of high-ranking EU people have said, you know, the further it goes along, the less likely they can stop it. But at this point, they're like, you know, you can still back out.
Yeah, they do keep saying, you know, you can still stop it if you want to,
but
you don't need to do this.
You know, it's easier for them if the UK don't leave as well. It's a beneficial thing. You know, as much as they want to make an example of the UK, if the UK stay, that's a great example. Look, they were going to leave.
The political damage has already been done to the UK.
Yeah.
The political damage to the UK and the EU has already been done, and also, number one, like, my opinion on a second referendum, I couldn't vote in it anyway, so whatever. It doesn't change my personal position, obviously, but, like, the first referendum was asking the country a question. It wasn't a binding thing, it was supposed to be consultative, you know, like, if we had a second referendum and if it went Remain, like, both of those would be just like, here's the opinion of the country at a certain time. Like, if a politician wants to do something different and take a huge gamble, which may or may not backfire in their face, they can always do that, as Cameron and May have demonstrated to us. It's not really, none of it is really binding. It's just that the Conservatives keep pushing and pushing and pushing. See, or whatever. I mean, I don't know.
It's one of those things. I've always generally, like, practically speaking, I'm more in favour of a proper MP vote for Brexit versus a second referendum necessarily.
The problem is that there was one.
Sort of.
Yeah, there kind of was one, and then that was one of the big problems I had with what Jeremy Corbyn said, was he was like, yeah, I mean, most of us don't agree with it, but we're going to just say, yeah, Brexit should go ahead anyway, even if we think it's the wrong decision.
Well, the will of the people, defeats the point.
Problem is also that even if you had a vote of MPs where the idea was, we'll say you will vote the way that your constituency voted on Brexit or whatever, even if that was the stance that most of them had taken, like, there are plenty of MPs, there are Leave MPs who had remaining constituencies and just didn't care. You know, there were MPs in the southeast where there's quite a lot of Remain. Like, at some point, they are just politicking. They don't really... There was never really a care about what the people want or what is best for the country, because if there had been, then Cameron wouldn't have called a referendum in the first place.
It makes a mockery of the idea that the MPs are there to represent us. They're there to represent their party leader. And the fact that we have an election that basically happens on both local and national level at the same time means that no one's happy.
Well, here's a question, Jay. Do you think it should be more like the American system where there's a separate vote for Prime Minister? Because obviously that gives more choice, but then, you know, you get a Prime Minister who doesn't have a majority and then they can't get anything done.
Well, I imagine how awful it must feel if you, let's say you live in Northern Ireland and the media, the national media, is full of nothing but Prime Minister could be Jeremy Corbyn, Prime Minister could be Theresa May, and you have no say in the matter. At least in the constituencies in England, you can kind of pretend that you're choosing Theresa May or choosing Jeremy Corbyn. A lot of people that don't live in places like Northern Ireland or, you know, in Scotland where the SNP have a really good chance, they don't realise that you're not choosing the Prime Minister.
You see more emphasised, really.
Especially here, like, in Northern Ireland, Scotland, I guess that is why, like, Scotland did vote so Tory, because, like, we're more kind of worried about the independence referendum than, like, you know, who will actually be governing when they wake up tomorrow morning.
Well, I know that's one of the, I think I said it earlier, one of the big problems of the devolved parliament is that people look at our devolved leaders and vote for what they're saying when really they have no say in the Westminster Parliament, which is what you're actually voting for. And so people can get really confused as to the differences between what the Scottish Conservatives and the actual Conservatives are saying, and there is a lot of things that they do actually disagree on. That's one of the things for the Scottish Tories, is that Ruth Davidson has a direct stance against a lot of what Theresa May says, and Ruth Davidson, by the way, is gay and is going to try and marry a Catholic.
I didn't know that till recently. Yep,
Ruth Davidson is obviously gay woman and also trying to marry an Irish Catholic, which the fact that the Tory party are getting with the DUP, not going to go very well.
I would like to think that she just made that decision recently just because she really doesn't like the DUP and it's just her way to annoy them. She's like, right, this would really piss off the DUP.
Kevin.
Yes.
Do you like your political voting system in the sense that you can vote for your president? in the sense you can vote for your president separately to your local representative and state representative.
Well, yeah. So I think so. Well, to me, the idea that I mean, because it's not just the prime minister, right? It's also the votes at Westminster. So the idea that you'd vote for the prime minister as a completely separate thing, you can kind of take it or leave it. But the idea that, you know, if I were in Scotland, I would love to be able to vote for the, you know, for the local parliament and the Westminster Parliament.
Kevin, you're very choppy.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, I think
no?
you're fine now. There you go, you're fine.
Yeah, we're fine now.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry, not sure what's up there.
No, not a clue.
Back to normal.
No, I mean, so our presidency is kind of a weird situation.
It's tragic.
It is. But I mean, if I were in Scotland, I would want to be able to vote for the local parliament independently from my Westminster MP. But I think that's separate from having a completely disconnected, you know, PM election.
But well, the thing is, the Prime Minister is not actually in charge of the country. People think of it like a presidential role,
right?
Because whenever we send someone to represent Britain, it happens to be the Prime Minister. But the Prime Minister's job is simply to be in charge of the party that got the most votes. The head of state is actually the Queen, that's a discussion for another time. That's another piece of statutory.
Right. Yeah, let's not go there today.
It means that, you know, if we vote for the head of state, you know, if you vote for the Prime Minister, then the job would no longer be called Prime Minister. They'd be a president, and then they'd necessarily, because they're directly voted for, they'd have more powers. So right. That's
that's the question
for another time.
Is, you know, because you look at the Irish voting and that they vote for a president and prime minister separately. But the Prime Minister still does act as the head of state in international affairs. The President is more representative.
Oh, that's fascinating. They vote for both.
Yeah, they vote for both separately.
Oh, yeah, because in France we vote for President, and then the President names the Prime Minister, but they have to name the Prime Minister from the majority of MPs?
It's how, essentially, the Prime Minister in Ireland is chosen much the same way as it is in England. You know, but obviously there's a lot more parties over there, so it's very much based in coalitions. And then the President's a separate thing. The President doesn't really do anything. They act as the Queen, essentially. They don't represent Ireland in political affairs. They don't. I don't know.
If there's an election for the Irish president, the Taoiseach, is that the word?
Yeah.
Or is the Taoiseach the Prime Minister?
The Taoiseach the Prime Minister. The President is the I cannot remember.
So the Taoiseach has the real power.
Yes.
And the President is like a sort of a head of state, like the Queen.
Basically,
without any real power, but they still get voted.
You know, I'm not actually like I don't know. I'm just looking it up. It's a 7-year term, 2 terms maximum. They're they're the head of state and the Supreme Commander of the Irish Defence Forces.
That's basically the Queen.
Yeah.
I think that a president is the same status as a monarch. I think it is just that one's democratically elected and one is.
Yeah, the President acts as a representative of the Irish state and guardian of the Constitution.
And how is the President chosen?
Via a vote every 7 years.
I'm going through Wikipedia as quickly as I can. I'm like, I don't know any of this.
So the newest President of Ireland, or possibly the newest Taoiseach of Ireland, is the first openly gay...
Yeah, the Taoiseach, yeah.
So that's the Taoiseach, the one with the real power.
Yeah, it's Leo Varadkar.
Basically, yeah. The Prime Minister is the gay guy, and the
Isn't he quite right-wing, though?
Yes, he
yes,
is.
That's not the... It's
so he's basically Ruth Davidson.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I mean, to your question, Matt, I think in the U.S., our president is really we vote every 4 years who we want to be queen.
But we also your president does a lot more than a queen.
Well, but in practice, yes, but in theory, we're also voting for our parliamentary legislation and our local representatives independent, and those are both separate. And I think that's something that I don't want to be sitting there going, what's best for Scotland and what's best for the country, and have one vote to make that decision.
Well, interestingly, Scotland has 2 votes. Because Scotland has separate votes for Scottish Parliament.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah, so we've
had even more elections than the UK this year.
Since I turned 18 and was able to vote, I've voted in 5 different political election things.
Well, this was something like there was a lower turnout in Scotland than usual, and it seems to be a thing of just voter, like they've just been in so many fucking elections that people are just getting a bit bored of it.
But that's the thing, is that in my constituency, I know there was a 55% turnout, and the thing is, the vote was decided by 60 votes in my constituency. The SNP won by 60 votes. There was also a place, I think it was Fife constituency, was won by 2 votes.
Wow.
Every vote counts.
It does.
But the thing is that the turnout in Scotland is always between like 50 to 60%, and I don't honestly know why Scotland has such a low turnout, because whenever you go up into Glasgow or whatever, like the centres always get so many like political things going on.
Maybe that's why.
It could be. It could be a case of the people that talk about it are the ones the vocal majority are the ones that are actually voting, whereas the minority that aren't, there's a minority that aren't talking, but they also just don't vote at all. I don't know.
I have friends that don't vote, and I say, like, you need to get out and vote. You're being really apathetic. You're part of the problem. And they're like, oh, I'm only part of the problem if I was going to vote for the party you like. So, do you think it's better off?
Well, Jay Foreman has a video about this, doesn't he?
Yes, I do.
Do you think it's better off if people vote and vote for like something bad, like the DUP, being very subjective here, or they don't vote at all?
You can spoil your vote. I did the point there from Jay's video.
Yeah, if you want to sort of exclude yourself because you don't like any of the parties, it's much more constructive and much more fun to spoil your ballot than just to stay home.
You can spoil it by drawing a dick on it.
I don't know. I really hate spoiled ballots. I think it's just as useless as not voting.
Well, the difference is a spoiled ballot is still counted as a vote. It was just a non-vote, so it's still counted as a turnout to vote.
I have friends that
there were a lot of spoiled ballots in the second round of the French election this time around.
I guess if there's enough for it to be impactful, but I had friends who were the count center. Oh, sorry, you cut out there. The second round of the French election was. Oh, sorry. I was just saying there was a lot of spoiled votes in the second round of the French election recently between centrist Emmanuel Macron and, of course, Marine Le Pen, who is like a massive racist, anti-Semitic comments like right in the election campaign, and also stole money from the EU, even though she wants to do French Brexit or Frexit or whatever. Oh God, I can't. But anyway, in the second round of the election, there were a lot of spoiled ballots because people didn't want to. People wanted to express the fact that they fucking hate Marine Le Pen's guts, but they didn't want to vote for Macron because a lot of the left doesn't like him because he's been in government briefly before launching his own party, and some of the stuff that he did was quite, well, he's a centrist, so a lot of the French left and far left considers him like very right-wing on particularly economical matters, and he wants to do things like make it easier for people to work on Sundays, and just like he had a hand in some labor laws that people didn't like. So there were a lot of spoiled ballots because people wanted to turn out and say, actually, we don't like either of them. That would be like me if I'm stuck voting for, say I'm in a constituency, I don't like DUP or Sinn Féin. I don't like how they pander to both communities, but I would still vote for Sinn Féin over the DUP because they're the least bad option. Like, I just don't see any scenario where if you want to keep someone who's genuinely bad and dangerous.
I mean, to be fair, I queued for like 2 hours so I could vote for Emmanuel Macron, and I'm very far left.
Yeah.
So, I get your point, I agree.
Well, do you not consider that the idea of, voting for the worst, the least bad makes sense, but in the long-term view of, several elections in the future, do you not think that, expressing your distaste for all the candidates would encourage more candidates that would fit your view a bit more?
I think the best way to do that is to get involved in local politics and join a party that aligns to your own views, or try and find a group of like-minded people. Because I had friends at the count in Belfast, and they were like looking at the spoiled ballots, and it was just people writing, "Oh, Corbyn, yeah," and then they just go into like a separate box, and no one ever looks at them again.
Well, this is what I like about the French system, where the first round of voting, you really can vote with your heart, and you can vote how you really feel, safe in the knowledge that at the end of the day, there's going to be a second round where you can vote safely. And something wonderful I heard from the French presidential election in 2002, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but there were some people on the left forced to vote for Jacques Chirac from the right-wing party because it was against Jean-Marie Le Pen, and they were voting with gloves on. So it was not really their hand that was doing it.
Well, I mean, that's a bit... That's why there was so many... Basically, you are correct, and that is why there was so many spoiled ballots in the second round this time around, because in 2002 we had exactly this situation.
But the spoiled ballots, that won't achieve the end goal of preventing a Le Pen from being president.
Right. But also, Jacques Chirac was then elected with 82% of the vote, and that was used by him later on, in the long term, like you're saying, like that was used by him to say, I have this huge mandate from the French people and I'm going to do all this terrible stuff. So people are saying, like, I voted for Macron because I've not lived in France for a long time. I don't have strong feelings about this guy because I know basically nothing about him, and I felt like I could take one for the team. It didn't seem distasteful to me. But I'm sure that there are people who live in France who the laws that he wants to pass would affect, who feel differently. So they didn't want to give him a free mandate, but they still wanted to express their disgust and whatever. But yeah, the first round of the French election is precisely that. You vote for who represents you the most. And there is a lot of talk in France before every election about being strategic, and about if you vote for a small party in the first round, you're really doing the work of the far right or whatever. And the point is, you know what? If you want people to vote in this situation where we feel like we can vote really for what we want, What you need to do is to convince us to vote for you, as opposed to going on and on and on and on about how the other guy is worse. The problem with a lot of politics right now is that everyone is saying the other guy is worse, you need to vote for us, instead of saying, here's what we'll do, and it's quite good, vote for us.
I noticed the Tories did that especially. Like, Labour were guilty of that, granted, but the Tories' seemingly main campaigning was disparaging Labour, while Labour's main campaigning was more, you know, about university tuition fees and...
Well, that is for since the first independence referendum. That's pretty much been the Scottish Tories' main thing. Is that instead of saying this is what we'll do, they say we won't let another referendum happen, and that's been why they've been growing in Scotland. It's because that's all they've been talking about. They've not talked about anything else.
Go on, sorry.
No, I just wanted to make a point about the thing about a mandate. Because it seems like, in my experience, it's a political rhetorical trick that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with vote turnout or the majority or anything. I mean, it seems like that it's something that people will trot out kind of regardless, and I wonder how effective it can be to say, all right, we want you to win by as small a margin as possible. I mean, especially, and you look at Theresa May, speak. There was no humility in like, oh, okay, I'm gonna back things off. We've definitely got. I mean, there's no.
Really choppy again, Kevin.
Oh, dang it!
Do I look like I know what a jerk?
Weirdly, Kevin, you're not having any packet loss, so I don't know what's causing it.
That is very odd. I'm not sure. I'll try and restart some of my stuff.
You're fine now. So.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, the point I was making is I think it's a political rhetoric thing, and not really connected to what the result of any election is. You don't see in America we don't see Trump going, man, I only barely won. Let's try and reconcile these two. Let's try and find a moderate path.
He only barely won.
And also because it doesn't make a difference. If anything, if they want to have a good chance of getting re-elected the next time, they've got to pretend that it was a massive mandate. You know, there is no difference between winning by a hair's breadth and winning with a thumping majority. Once they're in, they can basically do what they want. That's the depressing thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important psychological thing as well. Like, there are so many people who had never voted for the right before they voted for Chirac in 2002. In France, there are many people who were traditional socialist voters because that's what their family were, because they're from the north of France, because all these things. And they voted for Chirac in 2002, right? And now that they had done it one time, it didn't seem so crazy to do it again. And, you know, this whole shift that we've been experiencing as, you know, a Western world further and further to the right. This thing that Corbyn mentioned when he first came in, saying, you know, the balance of mainstream politics has been shifting further right, and we need to bring it back to the left because austerity doesn't work. Like, that's very true, and that's something that, you know, happens so slowly that you don't really realize it until you're bang in the middle of something that looks very dystopian, and you don't really know how to get out of it again.
Yeah, like, a lot of people get annoyed at the term blue right when you use to address a lot of the sort of people that you get in modern Labour, but I think it's quite a good term just for the fact that Labour progressively went to right of centre, so much to the point where Lib Dems, who were complete centralists, were actually one of the leftmost parties you could vote for.
Well, this is the interesting thing, the UK voting, because really, you know, the country's split reasonably close to 50-50 between left wing and right wing.
It necessarily has to be, because the parties will shift in order that there will be, in the long term, performing about as well as each other. That's the only way that it'll ever... if you just think about the maths of how it works, that is always necessarily going to happen.
That's fair.
Yeah, because whichever party is on the kind of smaller side just rushes to catch up. Exactly. In the same way that you see when UKIP starts doing well, then the Conservatives start pandering to those ideas as well.
I do quite like our voting system for our local elections. It's single transferable vote, so you can kind of vote for like the little guy that you want to win first, and then you can kind of do fallback votes to everyone else. Cause then you can so you can vote from like 1 to 13, and then you can leave the ones you really don't want to win off at the very end, so that like they can't meet the quota, and that's harder for them to get elected.
We very nearly switched to a similar system. We had a referendum in 2011 whether to switch to AV, where you rank 1, 2, 3 your favourite candidates. But both the Tories and Labour ran this really negative campaign saying, if you have AV, it means that the loser is going to win, and it's going to cause babies to die because she needs a simple voting system.
They showed soldiers and stuff being like, this money to change the system could be going to get him equipment, you suck!
Yeah, and the depressing thing is, it worked, and the referendum on whether to switch to AV was lost to something like a 68% majority who wanted to keep first past the post. Which means it's even more depressing than we've got first past the post for now. It means we've got first past the post forever. Because every time people come forward and suggest we need to change the completely archaic and stupid voting system, the people in charge will say, yeah, but look, we had a referendum, and I think we have concrete evidence that there is no appetite for change. So it set things back for a very, very long time.
Which is frustrating because, I've been in Ireland during Irish elections, and they have single transferable vote for their general elections. And it's amazing watching them go through, because it takes fucking forever to get a goddamn result. Because they go through like eight counts.
To be fair, that's one advantage of first past the post. I mean, at least it's very simple and can be counted quickly.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only advantage.
For even determining my preference for voting, I had a fucking spreadsheet made the night before, then went in, and then numbered it like 1 to 14, so I can see why people who wouldn't be engaged in politics would be like, nah, fuck this. Or just put 1 for one person and leave.
But it doesn't break the system if you just put 1. I mean, it's just...
You look at...
There was this really great AV explainer with cats and dogs on YouTube that I mean, I don't know, I used to work for...
Right.
Yeah, I used to work for an electoral, for a ballot provider, so like all that stuff was what I did for work, and it seemed very, very obvious, but that was another one where I couldn't vote, so...
See, the Scottish local elections use a different kind of AV system. It's not quite AV, it's kind of a mix. It's called the additional member system, and basically when you're voting for Scottish Parliament you do 2 votes.
We get that for our I think we got that for a mayoral election, at least here. I think we get that for our councils as well.
Yeah, see, that happens for our Parliament, so so you vote for someone to represent your constituency and then someone to represent your region. So there's I think there's I don't know how many regions, there's like 30 regions or something like that, just say, and you vote for a member of a representative for your region, and then you vote for a representative for your constituency, which is just the same first past the post system that you use in the UK elections. And so you basically just do 2 different votes that all go into Parliament, but it just means that they take the first past the post and then kind of split it out a wee bit, so you get a bit more representation. So like when you vote for a regional one, say the SNP win the regional one, they might get like 9 seats from that, whereas if in the constituency you could all vote for Labour, so Labour gets seats from that, and it's quite a weird system, but actually it works a bit better than first past the post, I think. At least from what I can tell, like all the parties tend to get a bit more representation in the actual government.
Well, this is always frustrating to me, because in the last general election, UKIP got I think 16% of the vote and 1 seat, and the SNP got a much lower percentage of the actual vote, but then got
and 57 seats.
And as much as I actually despise UKIP, the people who voted for UKIP still should be represented.
You can make the same point for the Greens if you want to feel better about yourself.
Yeah, sure, the Greens, yeah.
Yeah,
the Greens have the highest amounts of vote per MP of everyone.
The Greens have like 500,000 votes in the last election or something, and obviously only the Brighton one got elected, which was our leader.
That was definitely true last Parliament. It's no longer true this Parliament because UKIP now have all those votes for literally 0 MPs, whereas the Greens still have at least 1 MP.
Although UKIP don't have many votes.
The second one. Is it still 1?
Yeah, the Greens still only have 1.
It's still 1.
It's always just Brighton.
It's still Brighton Pavilion.
Yeah.
But no, UKIP lost so many votes.
Increasing number of constituencies.
You see, it's always frustrating looking at it, because you know, in Ireland, people who are elected are generally represented. I think as well. I think constituencies have more than one MP.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but basically anyone in the south of England right now, look at the sunset. It's incredible.
There you go, south of England. Go out to your window. Come on.
All right, fine. We'll be right back. I need to go find a window with a sunset.
Yeah, it hasn't set here yet.
There's not even a sunset here yet. It's still bright outside.
Sunset.
I'm in here. It's not pretty here at all. It's full of clouds.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's not pretty. It's full
Well,
of
from the North
clouds.
Circular, it looks really amazing.
It's just a sunset.
Oh, God, the North Circular looks good.
Google says
It's not great.
Google says sunset here is 10:04
Damn it,
p.m.
Jay.
You know, look.
Door.
I'm the door.
Thank you.
Okay, so like looking at these results here, right? So for example, Sinn Féin. Actually, no, let's just go with the DUP. The DUP have 10 seats, and those 10 seats are for 300,000 votes, while the Greens had 500,000 votes and have 1 seat. So the Greens have a total of 200,000, almost double the amount of seats of the DUP, yet have 10% of the seats.
Yeah.
But guys, there's not a problem with first past the post. It's perfect the way it is, don't you know?
And it's you know, one of the biggest problems with Ireland is that there's a lot of parties. There's a huge amount of parties, and because it's proportional representation, you get a massive mix of parties, and then your parliament is just a mess of different parties. It's very, very difficult to come up with a consensus. Forming a government's very hard in Ireland, just because they have to form coalitions, and it's very hard to form coalitions. That's why the Irish Prime Minister was in power for so long after the last general election, because he was just the interim leader, and because they just couldn't really figure it out. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I'm not looking at this well. The UK Independence Party has more votes than the Greens. They have 600,000 votes.
Really?
Yeah.
That many people still voted for UKIP?
Yeah, they have
oh man.
600,000 votes. 600,000 votes.
Is that this election?
Yes, there's this election.
Wow.
So they have. I mean, Greens, I know, lost a lot to Labour this election, but you know, the UKIP have almost as many votes as the SNP.
I mean, the thing is with the Greens is that some of the Green candidates actually stood down and just outright said vote for Labour instead. So that might have a small factor in it, but yeah, I mean, that's the problem when you have national parties that are in like UK elections, is that you'll get it where that if all of Scotland votes for SNP like we did in the 2015 one, then the SNP are going to be the third biggest party, even though Scotland is quite tiny.
It was really worrying in my constituency, which is Hampstead and Kilburn, which was a marginal between Labour and the Tories. And UKIP had decided not to put a candidate there because they didn't want to, in their words, split the Brexit vote. However, everyone on the left had to choose between Labour and also the Lib Dems and also the Greens. So it was very plausible, really worrying, that we could have had a win for the Tory candidate, not because more people wanted them, but because their voters were all concentrated into one party, whereas the much bigger left was split and sprinkled across a rainbow of parties that wouldn't cooperate with each other. I mean, fortunately that didn't happen, but that is a sign that the system is seriously broken.
It is. Because it does work, you know, in America, at least for presidential elections, it does vaguely work because you got 2, 3, 4 candidates. But, you know, I'm looking at results from the previous election. UKIP in the previous election had 3,880,000 votes, which was double that of the SNP. So the UKIP had double the amount of votes than the SNP. However, the SNP had 56 seats and the UKIP had 1. Which, you know...
And I mean, the thing is also that UKIP can only do well if they are able to go around on telly all the time and be like, we're the silent majority, we don't have seats, we can't... If we were in power, we would do so much better. But actually, once we've got Brexit, now you can see they're not doing well at all because people are kind of like worried about what's going to happen now, and because their one policy's been done, you know. But
yeah,
I mean, a lot of it is them just saying that like political martyrs and no one likes them because the establishment.
My favourite thing over the elections was someone said on BBC News, at the end of every election, Nigel Farage either becomes leader of UKIP, resigns as leader of UKIP, or both.
Nice.
I think that's why the incumbent party almost never takes part in TV debates. And Theresa May, she took a huge risk not taking part in this one because she must have known that she was going to get loads of stick for it, people calling her a coward. But the reason she doesn't is because it is so much easier to say, if we were in power, we would do this, than to say, check out our record.
I mean, if she didn't want to take that shtick, she could just have, like, not called an election.
Yes, yeah, exactly. This is the very logic that she was using when asked, why aren't you turning up to the debates? She was saying, well, now's not the time for debate. I'm busy thinking about Brexit. And I'm curious. I wonder if literally anybody for that, because that is exactly the same logic that she could have applied to not holding this fucking election in the first place.
She sent Amber Rudd as well, days after her father had died, and she got completely slaughtered.
Whoa! Be a little more patriotic there. Come on, if the media could be a bit more patriotic, you know.
Yeah, if the debate wasn't worth having, then they wouldn't have sent anybody. And the fact that Theresa May sent someone in her place, well then that basically destroys her in both ways. It just makes everybody, even people that love Theresa May, must have watched those debates and gone, well, she's being a bit of a coward right now, isn't she?
Yeah, she still looks incredibly... I'm surprised she hasn't resigned. I'm surprised they haven't called for her resignation.
Strong and stable.
Probably isn't allowed to resign.
I think it's a poison chalice no one else wants. Let her stuff it up for 2 years, then once she's stuffed up, they'll pin all the blame on her, then bring someone in.
Well, this is an unprecedented situation where no one in the Tory party actually wants her to resign because the only thing they've got going for them, the only thing that they were trying to sell is continuity and stability. So if the Prime Minister resigns, that means it's official. They have nothing all along. And everybody knows it. And the people in the Tory party, they must be tearing their hair out over what the hell they do. Because if Theresa May stays, it's a fucking disaster. And if Theresa May quits, it's a fucking disaster. But the Tories should be by now, very used to causing fuck-ups where both options are awful.
How do they keep winning elections?
Well, the thing is that this was supposed to... This is the reason why I think so many people are like, oh, they must have been trying to lose the election, because there's no other logical outcome that says that they managed to do this badly in their campaign. There's no other reason people can think of that they managed to do this badly in their campaign other than they were trying to lose the election. Because they just, at every single possible turn, they took the wrong one. Like, there was not a single thing they did where people were like, oh yeah, that was reasonable. Like, everything they did was just, everyone was like, why are you doing this?
Are the Tories basically like Snape in the Harry Potter books, where the whole time you think that he's evil, and then at the very end of the book, spoiler alert, it turns out that he was only so evil because he was actually trying to do something really good. And could it be
but he
that
was
the Tories are playing a
really good
long
for
game?
really shitty reasons, so, you know. I mean, I don't know. Also, no.
Weirdly, with the Tories, you know, because one of their big campaign things was a strong and stable bollocks, wasn't it? We don't want a coalition of chaos, and they made a fucking coalition.
Amazingly, that's all they had. They never actually talked about anything. They never talked about Brexit, which is what this was supposed to be about. But the reason they didn't talk about it is because, as we all know by now, they've got absolutely nothing to say. And that's why it's so embarrassing and hilarious that the only thing they were advertising was this vague notion of competence and continuity and strength. And that is the one thing that we absolutely know that they don't have. This might be, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, that this is the first election in history where every single party should be devastatingly unhappy. So first of all, there's the Tories, who only went into this because they wanted to go for this, you know, historic, record-breaking majority, which they didn't get. They lost their majority, so they're unhappy. Labour, yes, they did a lot better than was expected, but they still lost by 60 seats, so they're not happy either. SNP have lost, you know, almost half of the Westminster MPs they had. UKIP have now completely disappeared. The Green Party, this could have been a great chance for them, but they still stuck on just one MP. And the Lib Dems, who in all of this chaos should be cleaning up, but instead they've got this woozle-wozzle of a creationist in charge of them, and they've not done well at all.
Well, they don't anymore. He resigned.
They got rid of him.
Yep,
he hasn't resigned yet. He said he's going to resign. So they are still led by Tim Farron. And it looks like the best contender to replace him is going to be Vince Cable, who has the one thing that seemingly no politician has anymore, which is experience. He wants to be the Bernie Sanders of Britain.
The one thing, I remember everyone celebrating like mad on, I sat up all night and watched the elections, of course, because I like to torture myself, and everyone was like, yeah, Corbyn didn't lose as much as we thought he would, happy fucking days, and then I was just like, no guys, the DUP, you don't understand, and everyone was like, yeah, Corbyn didn't lose as much, and I was like, guys, you know like when you're watching like a horror movie and there's like one wee scientist in the corner, like, one of these calibrations are off, oh my god, I'm just sitting there like, no!
So yeah, I was sitting there, because I was watching it myself until about 3 in the morning, and then I just like drove round to my friend's house because they were all up, and we were basically sitting there like, we should be happy right now with, because it actually went quite well, but we know that it's only going to get worse from here.
So someone just in the chat just said, but Corbyn and the IRA, yeah, that was one of their big things as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. The emails.
See, when I was watching Corbyn, I think it was on Channel 4, and I was live tweeting it, and I was watching it with everyone else, and the first question was from some guy from Northern Ireland, and I was like, oh, happy days, someone from here, and then he was like, Jeremy Corbyn, you supported the IRA, and I was like, for fuck's sake. It was like, then people were tweeting like, okay, is this what politics in Northern Ireland is always like? And I was just like, yep, and now you all get a wee taste of it, because the DUP is gonna be in number 10.
Well, they're not actually, are they? Because well, they haven't actually formed a deal yet.
It's weird.
Have they?
It's like what is it? Something and supply.
It's an informal like we'll vote for you, but we're not actually in a coalition thing.
Yeah.
Like the DUP have such a disproportionate amount of power just because nobody else is going to go with the Tories, so the Tories need to rely on them, and so they're just like sitting there, Darth Sidious in the background, like excellent.
It's one of those weird things what Jay was saying before, and that the left has a lot of parties, while the right doesn't really. It is basically just the Conservatives, UKIP, and the DUP,
and not even UKIP anymore.
Yeah.
So the right has a lot of failed fringe parties, like the EDL and the BNP that once at some point, like the BNP at one point looked like it might vaguely become a threat, but then it all fizzled out and collapsed on itself horrendously. Yeah, but they've got fringe parties who have failed a lot.
But this is it. But this is what Jay was saying. The idea that you look at a lot of Scottish constituencies where the Tories won, and it was pretty much a three-way tie almost with the SNP and Labour, and obviously the trend in those areas was to left-wing policies because 40,000 of the votes were for the SNP and Labour combined, but the Tories got 23,000 votes, while the other two only got 20,000 votes, so the Tories won, even though the area clearly wants a left-wing candidate.
And the thing with that as well is that see the areas that voted, that changed from SNP to Tory, they are the areas that if you ask most people in Scotland, they would say, yeah, they would go towards the Tories there. Like, it was Aberdeenshire, it was Perthshire, and it was the South Dumfries area, all the really rich areas of Scotland. However, that is the fact that it was still such a big left-wing representation that was just so fractured and split, because there's so much infighting on the left that it makes it really difficult to actually fight against any of the right policies, because the right are all just Tories.
Yeah.
And, we won't go UKIP, we'll just go Tories. And so, because they've got that sort of, it's one party, it's a lot easier for them to get. This system benefits them for that.
A lot of the left need to get their shit together in terms of it's just there's too many parties and too much choice. Even within Labour, the amount of infighting over Corbyn,
people. I think that it's weird because the left are actually some of the least willing to give on our own policies. Like we're not as willing to work with other people who slightly disagree with you, whereas people on the right, they can slightly disagree in some things, but they're happy to come together to go against the left-hand side. And it's weird that they've got that kind of union, whereas so many people, if you're slightly more right than somebody else, then it doesn't matter if you're still left, they'll still just
even between
argue with you.
being liberal and left, there's infighting amongst that as well.
Exactly.
This is one thing I miss from the days of New Labour, which is when most politics took place in the centre, and people could sort of topple one side or the other, and they could shift, and they were quite close. What's happening now that New Labour has disappeared, is there doesn't seem to be any centre ground anymore. And I now find it hard to imagine what a swing voter looks like. Like, can you imagine somebody who can't quite decide between Labour and the Tories?
Lib Dem.
Yeah, Lib Dem. I say Lib Dems fill that space pretty nicely at the minute.
But the people aren't voting for the. But the thing is people aren't voting for the Lib Dems instead. Like, if that was the case, you would think the Lib Dems would have got a lot more votes and seats than they did. You know, you think a lot more people would have swung.
There's also this issue that everybody thinks they're the centre ground. Like, probably Tories think they are the centre ground and Labour voters think they are the centre ground. Everybody thinks everyone is their own centre ground. It's hard to say there should be an objective centre ground party, because the centre ground lives in a different place depending on what your own political positions are.
Well, and from the perspective of an American outsider, the Tories are very liberal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Claire's position on what a centrist would be based on her French perspective is probably very different to what my position of what a centrist would look like. It's a matter of perspective.
That's the thing, like, say Hillary Clinton ran for a party over here, she would probably go with either the Tories or maybe at a stretch the Lib Dems. You know, whereas so it's the country in general is so askew different to Britain, and then you've also got Britain is quite different to like France and Spain and all that.
Even if you look back at like Labour and Conservative policies, even like 30-40 years ago, it's still even then the alignment, it's like the lines of what's left and what's right keeps being redrawn.
I've just done some calculations here. In this
can you make that noise again with a calculator?
Well, in this general election, if you just look at essentially left and right of the current parties, the left beat the right by 2.4 million votes. 16,987,000 to the left versus 14,500,000 to the right.
So was that actually a lower turnout in Brexit in general? For the but those numbers, because obviously the Brexit vote was closer, but it was won by 17 million. So did more people vote for Brexit than actually the general election?
Hang on.
Oh, I like that noise. Can you do it again?
Brexit results.
Nah, it wasn't as good the second time.
Oh, fuck off, Foreman. The general election this year, it doesn't actually, the BBC site doesn't tell me. It does for the 2015 one.
I suppose we can probably guess that, more people turned out for Brexit. Which, I wonder why that is. I wonder why, like, there's like 3 million people or whatever from the Brexit vote who just decided, nah, not gonna
Imagine
bother
it was
voting
like, because
the
we
general
had the 2015 general election, right? And then we had Brexit. And then the thought of even having another election again, I imagine people were disenfranchised, because Brexit's more than a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So it's kind of like, I really need to have a vote in
Interestingly, looking at this, the actual turnout of people to the EU referendum versus the 2015 election was almost identical. 46,500,000 for the EU referendum and 46,420,000 for the general election.
A lot of people were probably just, like, after Brexit, they're probably just like, it doesn't matter who I go for, we're still... Maybe it was a lot of Remain people that didn't turn out, because they were like, oh, well, it doesn't matter what happens, we're leaving the EU anyway, so why does it matter?
Yeah, I thought that
I
don't know. Voter apathy. Oh God, come on, give me the results.
Perhaps there'd have been a bigger turnout if people thought that they were basically doing a proxy vote, like a rerun of the Brexit referendum.
The turnout was the same.
Like that, because the turnout might have been higher if it had felt like a second attempt at Brexit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, because both Labour and the Tories, they've both sort of like skulked and said, well, I suppose it's happening now. Which is surprising, particularly from Jeremy Corbyn, who perhaps could have got a lot more votes from angry Remainers by... but then again, that's what the Lib Dems tried, and it didn't work for them.
But wasn't Corbyn always... Not necessarily...
He's never liked the EU.
Yeah.
When he was last on the last leg show, he was like, so, tell me, how do you feel, like, how strongly do you feel about staying in the EU if, like, 1 is awful and 10 is maximum? And that was his cue to start talking passionately about something. But then he says, it's kind of 7 out of 10. And a lot of people blamed him for Brexit happening based on comments like that.
Yeah. But then also in a lot of, it wasn't as many constituencies as the Tories, but I think there was quite a big swing from the UKIP voters to Labour. There were a load of UKIP voters who were like against the EU, but were still relatively left-wing or against the Tories, or whatever reason, went back to Labour. And so would they have, see if Corbyn had came out strongly in favour of Remain, would they have just went, no, I'm not voting for you, I'll just vote Tories instead?
He must have been afraid of those people, otherwise he probably would have gone for the Remainers.
No, I don't know. There's I know quite a lot of left people who wanted to leave the EU on grounds of look what they did to Greece and stuff. So from a non non-racist, non-xenophobic perspective, and maybe Corbyn had that kind of view. But that's one of the issues I have with people before profit, because I literally agree with nearly everything else apart from their Brexit stance. But if you had a party that was literally 100% your views, you'd run it, you know what I mean?
Well, exactly. I think
I have an idea for a completely different way we could run the country. I'm just going to run this by you, where instead of there being one government who is in charge of issues such as health, schools, transport, policing, why doesn't each category have its own government, run its own elections, and have their own separate taxes? So that way, instead of having to decide who is the party that can do everything that you like, so let's say you agree with Labour on the NHS, but you agree with Tories on the economy, for example. This could be a system where you vote for different parties for different
Who controls the budget?
Yeah.
There's a separate party. They're in charge of budget only, and they decide who gets what.
I always thought, what if you just went into the polling booth and voted for policies rather than parties, and then the most popular party got elected based on that?
That's kind of what ancient Greece did, and it didn't end so desperately well for them.
There's a website where you can answer questions like, what do you think of this policy, that policy, but they don't tell you which party the answers come from. And so at the end it gives you, here is the party that you should vote for, and it might be a surprising one because they don't tell you what the questions are.
See, that wasn't very helpful for me because I did that and they were like, yeah, you're 75% Labour, 75% SNP and 75% Greens. I'm like, great, so I vote for anyone then.
Well, actually, that's a good starting point, because you can go from there to another website that shows you how best to vote tactically, like who do you want to keep out.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually one of the things, was that on Twitter I was quite big in favour of Corbyn and Labour and all that, and then I got into the polling station and went, oh shit, we have SNP as well. I've been too busy trying to convince other people why they should vote for Labour that I forgot to actually decide who I'm going to vote for. And so I'm standing in the polling station going through all the policies in my head, right, who's best?
Has anyone here ever done that? Ever, apart from you, turned up to a polling station and then decided only on looking at the ballot paper and considering, and your pencil actually hovers up and down? Has anyone done that?
I do that for local elections and council elections.
Same.
Because they don't count.
When it's single transferable vote, and I'm like, what order did I put them in again? Oh, I'm feeling them today. They can be number 7.
And does anyone else get the same anxious feeling that I do after you've voted and you've put it in the thing? Because you can't go back and check. How do I know? Maybe I got it wrong. Can I have a look at it again?
What if I accidentally voted leave?
And also, you hold your finger. You hold your finger against the ballot paper really closely to make absolutely sure you're ticking the right box.
I ended up very annoyed with my tactical vote this last election because, we live in a seat where both the Lib Dems and Labour claim that they're going to be the ones who you ought to vote for if you want to keep the Tories out. But in the end, I felt, based on historic behaviour, that Labour looked like they ought to be the better bet because they did better last time. But actually, the Lib Dems did way, way better this time. Damn it! If enough of us had all decided to side with the Lib Dems, we could have kicked the Tories out. Damn it!
Which seat was that?
I don't like to say if that's alright. I try and...
that's alright. But basically, in Hampstead and Kilburn, where I live, we got leaflets from the Lib Dems that said, hey, we are the only people that could beat the Tories, and then they showed this bar graph from before the 2010 election. And indeed, in that election, then the Lib Dems came a very, very close third, and they made it look like they are the only ones who could beat the Tories. But nowadays, not only was it bullshit, not only was it a complete lie, it's fucking dangerous. Because let's say you hand that to someone who hates the Tories and wants to vote tactically, they'll read that and then not vote for the Labour candidate, letting the Tory in.
In North Belfast for the 2015 general election, Sinn Féin did the same thing. So they did a bar chart of Protestants and Catholics, and it was only like a really like small percentage apart, but they made it look like the Protestant percentage was like really, really like far away or something, and it was just like vote Catholics to keep our majority. And I was just like, Sinn Féin's meant to look like this liberal progressive party, yet they're still doing these dirty old tricks. It's just so annoying when they send out stuff.
Who do you vote for if you're neither Protestant nor Catholic in Northern Ireland? Let's say you're either Muslim or Jewish or an atheist, if any of those do exist in Northern Ireland. Who?
Wait, Protestant atheist or a Catholic atheist?
Yeah.
That's my answer. There we go.
Yeah. They would vote for Alliance or the Green parties, or if they are a Christian immigrant, they may possibly want to vote for the DUP.
But what about people that have come from countries where Christianity is not a thing? They don't know or care or even understand the difference between Protestant and Catholic, and they want to vote for a party that's going to do something about the bins being collected on Tuesday. Who's targeting them?
Probably Alliance or the Green Party. I would say Alliance is like the cross-community party.
Religious. 86% of people in Northern Ireland are Christian.
Yeah, and it's 98% white as well. Like it hasn't caught up with the rest of multicultural.
I thought Protestants and Catholics were pretty 50-50, but it looks to be a bit more in the Catholic.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Ireland is generally a bit more Catholic, the same way Scotland is a bit more Protestant.
Well,
because all the Protestants went from Ireland and came to Scotland.
I thought that was the reason that they drew the border where it was, is because north of the border it was majority Protestant, and south is majority Catholic.
Very much towards where you're like getting to the Scottish sort of islands. There is all unionist essentially, apart from West Belfast.
Because I suppose if you think about it, a lot of the sort of big Protestant unionist people in Ireland might have just moved to the mainland UK.
Yeah, a lot of it's really the divide for uni. So a lot of people that went to my uni were Catholic because they would come from sort of like the country border towns for the first time, and they would go to the big smoke, which is Belfast, and then everyone I went to maybe secondary school with, because I went to a Protestant secondary school, like the vast majority of them went over to uni in England. The split was really mad. Like, I don't know why there's such a huge split between Catholic people staying in Northern Ireland for university and Protestant people going over to England or Scotland for uni.
Do you think, since the Good Friday Agreement, that there is a generation in Northern Ireland that doesn't give a fuck about all this? And do you think in 50 years' time, this will go away?
Definitely people, me and my friends and people I know, we really don't give a fuck about it, as much as we can, because there's still some very real consequences that exist. But in 50 years' time, I would love to say it will not exist, but there will still be people marching, and there will still be people parading, and there will still be people who care about flags, because I have friends my age from like back home where I grew up, and I see them posting on Facebook, vote DUP, they hate the gays but at least they'll keep us British. And this is coming from a gay person, and I'm just like, you're British first but gay second. Like, that's how much you love being British and care about the DUP. And while that mindset is in young people like our age, and they're going to pass that on to their friends and their family and their children, it'll just be like that for until there's some sort of like revolution or a border poll. It's just gonna stay like that.
I was so when I learned about this, I was just so bewildered by the almost it's so unnecessary patriotism.
Yeah, it's
to either country, and it feels so unnecessary, and it feels so. I consider myself a globalist, and it's weird to me for people to give that much. Like, two countries that are very ideologically similar, mind as well. It's not like the difference between fucking Palestine and Israel, where there is sort of a cultural difference. Culturally, Ireland and England are very similar country. Like, it confuses me. I can't even wrap my head around it, because
I guess it's like Canada and America, Canada to me from the outside always seems a bit more chill, and then America's like, fuck yeah, Eagles! Do you know what I mean?
I like the noise eagles make.
Kevin, can you verify that? Is there an eagle doing that?
Is that what? I mean, I've never actually seen an eagle in the wild.
I've not seen one.
You missed me doing like an air guitar thing at my desk, so it just didn't work out at all.
No, it's not the
No, it
noise
was
that
an
the
air
eagle
guitar, not the noise
is
of an
making.
eagle. Ah.
It's not the noise that the eagle is making, it's the eagle's rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of course.
America?
I think it's weird that a lot of people, when they say they're patriotic, it means that they don't question the government. When surely, if you're patriotic and want your country and love your country and all that, surely you should be overly critical of your government and be like, you want to make the country as best as it possibly can be, not follow the country even if we're doing really shit
That's
things.
the Amber Rudd thing, isn't it? When she was being interviewed and she, you know, the BBC anchors being very critical about the Brexit plans, like, you don't seem to have a plan. She's like, oh, it'd be very helpful if the media were a bit more patriotic, and the news anchor was, you're saying it's not patriotic for me to criticise and ask questions?
That was actually Andrea Leadsom, to be fair to Amber Rudd. She's a horrible person, but she's not Andrea Leadsom horrible.
Okay, there we go.
Andrea Leadsom, she's so charismatic. No one knows who she is.
Oh god.
Fair.
But yeah, like
I mean, Andrea Leadsom is a lot more like, you know, an old aunt who wants to tell you exactly what to do because she knows better. She's got that really patronizing way about her that some of the worst Tories have.
Like, I think in terms of patriotism, like, I know it's becoming a lot bigger of a thing in Scotland, and it's kind of making me annoyed because people have actually said to me, "Oh, so you're not patriotic then?" And I'm like, well, I love Scotland in terms of a lot of our traditions, like a lot of our like cultural stuff, like our stupid cultural stuff like Iron Brew and all that crap.
Yeah.
And then our actual country, like as in the land, like it looks really nice. It's a really lovely looking country. But in terms of politics, like hell yeah, I'm gonna criticise the fuck out of it because I want it to be better.
I'd be
It's
the
a
same.
bit like, you know, if you love something, or indeed someone, you can criticise them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like people who watch a movie and you start talking about how it could have been better and they go like, oh, but didn't you like it? Yes, I liked it. That's why I'm still talking about it. If I didn't care, I'd be on something else now.
Yeah, exactly.
This is fucking... I complain so much about Batman v Superman, and it's because I fucking love Batman, and that's why I complain so much about the fucker.
Yeah, it's no secret that I've been complaining about Northern Ireland a lot, but when it's second anyone else complains about it, I'm like, what'd you say about my wee country?
Exactly. This might be a shithole, but this is my shithole.
Yeah, it's not so much that people are viewing patriotic as like, you should never criticize us, but there's also a really sinister current of being patriotic, not just that you like Britain or that you love the UK or that whatever, but that you dislike everybody else.
And also,
that's not what being patriotic is.
It is your duty to be on Britain's side no matter what happens. You know,
That's
like your
terrifying.
kid.
Right or wrong.
It's like a religious cult. It's fucking
Yeah.
scary.
That's, I think, what Andrea Leadsom or Amber Rudd or whichever one it was. But what she meant when she said
One of
that you
the
have to be
Tories.
patriotic, because you know, just believe vaguely in the notion that Britain's probably fine, and of course we're an economic power, and of course that we can survive being on our own. It's unpatriotic to suggest otherwise. Well, no, it's realistic. Anyway,
It is that, you know, caring about your country and caring about how it's led is patriotic. Because if you didn't give a shit, that wouldn't be. If you didn't give a shit, yeah, you'd be pretty unpatriotic if you didn't care. But if you care, you probably are.
Yeah, I don't... The concept of nationalism, patriotism, I mean, like, general nationalism, not, like, Irish nationalism. It's so hard to, like, when you say Republican as well, you're like, no, I don't mean, like, the, like, Trump Republican, I mean a different Republican.
Yeah.
But even just the concept of, like, you know, you sing a little song about this piece of ground you were born on, and you put your hand up to your head, and you salute the magical ground, and there's little borders, and that means when you step over that, you're in a different place, and you show your little book with your picture of your little country on it. Just when you think about it like that, it's fucking mad.
Well, yeah, and it's so weird as well, considering, you know, the idea of local constituencies is like just it not being an issue is fine, but then the idea of a different country, oh no, that's so different. We can't do it. That's like why.
Yeah, like you don't get people in my area in southwest Glasgow saying to people in northeast Glasgow, "Oh no, fuck you guys, you're not allowed to come here. This is my."
I'll be honest. I say this as somebody who lives in Liverpool, and a lot of Liverpoolians treat Liverpool as its own country. Liverpool has very much an attitude of it's its own place almost.
And Liverpool and Manchester are pretty close together, Matt, but they don't always get on.
No, they don't. No, they do not.
No.
And they're pretty bloody close.
Yeah, fucking dirty Manny. I can't remember. Wolves? No, that's people from Bolton. You don't remember.
And as for people from one side of Manchester, they're not keen on people on the other side of Manchester.
Oh, like,
and don't get me started on the Glaswegians and how much they hate other Glaswegians.
Well, and you got north-south Dublin, you know.
Bloody Glaswegians, the ruined Glasgow.
Don't even get me started on those people from Edinburgh. Let's not go there.
It's weird though.
Did you notice that Theresa May was saying she didn't want Scotland to break up the UK because it wanted to stay in the EU, and she started using all this rhetoric about unity and about how if one little bit wants to go it alone, then that doesn't help anybody. But how can she possibly say that with a straight face when it's all in the name of leaving the EU?
Yeah.
It's the hypocrisy is just so naked and bare that you can't really add anything funny about it. It's very hard to satirize hypocrisy that's as blitheringly obvious as that.
But a lot of people sort of don't lick it up, weirdly. And I never understand that either.
The Patriot bike.
Yeah, Patriot bike. It's got an eagle on it, American flag, it's got a beard, it's a chopper, you know. American.
Just quickly, what time is this due to end? Because I've got to go.
Well, we can wrap it up.
That was literally what I just said as well.
We're coming up on 3 hours. Maybe we should wrap it up.
It's nearly 10 o'clock at night. You know?
I would like to, if you're curious about, there's a Simpsons sketch where they're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, and Quimby banned alcohol at it.
I can't hear anyone anymore.
Oh, good job.
Can you hear us now?
Hello.
He bans alcohol, and then, you know, everyone's having the St. Patrick's Day parade, and then, a bunch of people in orange start marching down the other way. And Lisa goes, "Oh no, it's the other Irish people!" And then they have this thing, and then, you know, it's like, what's happening in Grand Cube? It's like, there's been years it's been, and, you know, then they're looking at each other, and you've got a green leprechaun, and you got an orange leprechaun, and, you know, one's got Ulster written on it, and the other's got just St. Paddy, you know. And then, Crimmy's like, we banned alcohol, everyone's forgotten how, you know, alcohol was the only reason everyone forgot how much they hated each other, and then just fight, you know, she starts singing an Irish ditty, and then everyone calms down, and they all just start fighting anyway, because that's what they do.
Oh no, Jay dropped out.
Oh, he did, oh,
He's coming back.
Oh, there he is.
But yes, I need to go.
Yes, we'll wrap up now. Is there anything you'd all like to say before you leave?
I hate the DUP and I'm really sorry.
Not all of Scotland voted Tory, don't blame us.
Hashtag not all Scottish.
Hashtag not all Scots.
Hi Jay. We're wrapping up now. Oh, also download my game.
It's free on iOS.
TUBOCITY. It's not Turbo City, it's not Turbo City, it's Tubocity, like tube and velocity. Download my game, thanks, bye.
It's an alright game. Played it on the phone.
I've got a good score on it.
Nice.
Any Kevin, Claire, John, Jay, anything you want to say?
You can try. You're not going to get rid of all the French people. You're fucking stuck with all the French people.
Damn it! The dirty cheese eaters, the dirty cheese eating surrender monkeys. Get out of our country, Claire.
Yeah, Claire.
But leave the baguettes, please.
John, you're still stuck with me and generally the French people in the UK.
Gosh darn it.
And I'm just excited to have been distracted by this much more cheerful and optimistic political environment.
I think that says it all.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think the final sort of underline here is at least we're not in America. Right?
Yeah.
At least we're not American.
It
That's
could be
very
so much
true.
worse.
Yeah.
It could be so much worse.
Thanks for being the scapegoat, Kevin.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Aye.
If you
Go on.
If you want to disagree with me about anything I said about Northern Irish history, please tweet me at NinjaPots. Tell me I'm wrong, and I'll probably just be like, okay.
if you want to get angry at me, please tweet me at Mataphobia on.
I don't get enough fucking angry tweets as it is, do I? No.
Yes. If you want to tweet
If you want to disagree with anything I said, you can tweet me at Claire Russo, and I will tell you you were the wrong one all along.
Yeah, if everyone's Twitter names are at the top of the screen, they've been going over the whole time, they're going to be in the description. If you're watching this not live, which you probably are, because most people do, they're there. Go follow them all.
I also love that, Matt, right now, you literally changed the name of the channel from live stream, not live, to live stream live. I appreciate it.
Right, guys, we're live. Let's start. Let's go.
You know what? I do these things, and I forget they exist, and then I, last minute, and yes, well, you know what? Don't fuck off. Right? You know what?
Basically...
Go on, Jay.
I've been away for the last 5 minutes. Like, it just so happens that my phone at the worst possible time is like, it did so well for the last 3 hours, and it's just cut out now. So, what have I missed? What's happened? What's going on?
We're
leaving.
Nothing.
Oh! Wrapping up, okay.
Do you have anything to say to leave before you go, Joe?
Check out my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/jforeman, and check out my series called Politics Unboringed, which is, that's what I do.
It's very educational.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you all as well. Really nice to spend the last 3 hours ranting with you.
Yes.
You all seem to agree.
Also, if you're curious about borders, because we spoke about it, also, Jay Foreman does a series called Map Men, which he talks about fun borders.
Yeah, so check out Map Men as well, with me and Mark Cooper Jones off of the TV. So check that out as well.
Yeah. Follow him on Twitter. Jonathan, YouTube channel's done if you know it.
Yep, my YouTube, I'm Many a True Nerd. My YouTube channel is Many a True Nerd, and on Twitter I'm Many a True Nerd, and on Reddit I'm Many a True. Basically, no one really wanted Many a True Nerd before I got it, so I've got it everywhere. It's great. Except on Instagram. If you want to go steal the Many a True Nerd wait, no, I think Claire already did actually. Never mind. No, you can't. I think we've got it everywhere. Screw all of you.
Good job, John.
Bye.
Thanks for hosting us, Matt.
Well, Miss Vicky
Thank
as
you,
well.
Matt. Thank you, Matt. For making this happen. Oh, I forgot to mention I'm on Twitter as well. I'm at jforeman on Twitter.
You know, it's called Too Long for Twitter. That's kind of the selling point, is that you're all on Twitter, really.
I'm sure if you found this audiogram, then I'm sure you can find us as well.
Audiogram.
Wow.
Good old audiogram.
Go play Vicky's game. Turbosity.
Tubosity.
Turbosity.
Turbosity.
You know what, right? If you don't want people to get your name confused, maybe don't make it a confusing name, Becky. How's that?
I asked a linguist.
You asked a linguist. Great. You asked a linguist, not a marketing person. That's where you failed.
Clothes are not a very good one. Get your money back.
Yeah,
a cunning linguist. Claire? You have a YouTube channel, don't you?
Yes, I have. It's at Claire Russo. If you can't spell my name because it's difficult, just look in the description of the video. It's the same spelling as my Twitter. I talk about books and science fiction-y things.
See, we've got a good varied amount of content here. Go follow Claire. We have Kevin.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on hiatus from stuff, though. I mean, if you want to go to Twitter and follow Cheers Kevin, that's fine. But otherwise, meh.
Yeah, you're one of 3 people in this chat I've actually met, Kevin. Weirdly, considering you're in the United States, just oddly.
Indeed.
And very lovely man. And last but not least, Adam Gaffney, who I don't really know what he does, but he's here.
Well, I mean, I have like Twitch and YouTube and that. I just don't use them very often.
No,
I basically just tweet shit about politics and maths mostly, honestly. That's kind of my thing. Adam Gaffney 96. That's me on Twitter, and that's me everywhere else. So if you want to follow my Twitch, I'm not going to object.
There we go. That's everyone. Cool. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Fuck yous all. Bye.
At least we're not America.